Kripamaya is going to sing a few songs, and then we're going to have a 20-minute video clip of unedited footage from 1983, which you will all be interested to see. It really puts you in the mood of where we were and how we operated. And it's no one's seen this before except two people. So it's a good video clip. You might want to sit a little over there so you can see the video. And then we're going to start sharing after that. Shamataka, can you close the door, please? Yeah, thanks. Okay.
These microphones are terrible. These microphones stand. There's a better kind.
Are we going to be able to lower it at all? My point was it's too high. It should be just below the mouth level. Right.
Let me see if I can get this to work.
This might help.
So I have a special new song about microphones.
That one went over like
Dude, that one went over like a lead balloon.
I can see it. It's not going to do anything but give us more cover. I would just suggest, all right.
Oh, here we go. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
It could easily fall.
Okay.
Does anybody have any duct tape? For any help, salvation of everything.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Yeah, that's better. That's cool. Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. So I have a very special song I'd like to open with, which I've been working on for many, many years. I'd like to dedicate this to my dear friend and God brother Justin, and the song goes like this. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Justin. Happy birthday to you. Haribol. What's that? They never take birth again, right? Krishna to you. May he never be born again. May he never be born again in this material world. No, anyway. Unless it's a new as a palace manager. No. Okay. So to keep things moving, we'll just jump right into this. There's a little story about this song. What happened about 2 months ago, there was a pastor who came here to New Vrindavan, who formerly, he was a lawyer, right? And he used to follow the law books, you know, of mankind. In fact, he was a very good lawyer, and he actually was a lawyer against New Vrindavan from Charleston, West Virginia, you know. And I won't tell you the court case he was representing against us, you know. So then he decided, he told me he wanted to become a lawyer for the real lawmaker, for God. So he became a pastor. And he came here with 30 members of his congregation. We gave him a nice tour of the community. He was just so happy. And we took him in front of Gaur Nitai, and we spoke about Gaur Nitai and how he appeared 500 years ago. So he was saying, you know, that there's a theory amongst Christians, Christian historians, that every 500 years there's a special event coming. And first, you know, 2,000 years ago, Lord Jesus Christ appeared. Then 500 years later after that, the fall of the Roman Empire and the end of paganism. 500 years after that was the separation between the Eastern and Western churches. You know, the Catholic Church split. Then 500 years later came Martin Luther, right, the Reformation, yay! Well, I said, you know something that's interesting? That Caitanya Mahaprabhu came at the same time. Actually, Lord Chaitanya was appeared 3 years after Martin Luther. You know, so then he was thinking, so I asked him, what do you think's happening now? So he just sort of kind of looked at me, he was smiling, and his congregation was all around him. And I could swear to God, I could read in his mind, he was thinking, Srila Prabhupada. But he didn't want to say it. He was like, he just had this little smile on his face. So what we'll do is we'll just pick this song. You already know this song, the chorus anyway. So we ask everyone to please, it's a sing-along song. You know what a sing-along song is? You sing along, right? You know, what does it mean to sing along? It means he moves, you know, the upper and lower lip. It's one of those things, you know. So we'll begin with an instrumental, which is taken from the Lutheran tradition, written by one of the greatest composers of the Lutheran and the classical tradition. This is just a melody, a little instrumental, written by Johann Sebastian Bach, just to kind of set the mood. And then we'll go into the song. So here it goes. My dear Vaishnav devotees of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you're such a blessing in my life. How can I serve you? Always chanting Krishna's glories. You're just like desire trees, freely giving the fruits. The light of Krishna's love, so their hearts can become freed from the darkness of anger, envy, lust, and greed. My dear Vaishnav devotees of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you're such a blessing in my life. How can I serve you? Only by your grace can I taste the nectar within, the sweet sound of Krishna's name, so I can begin the path of pure devotion to the land of Vraja, where everyone's swimming in the love of Radha and Krishna. My dear Vaishnav devotees of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you're such a blessing in my life. How can I serve you? Here's a sing-along part. Vanshakapa turyubhyascha kripa sindhu pevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vanshakapa turyubhyascha kripa sindhu pevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Can we sing it one more time? And this time I won't sing. I just want to hear your voices. Ready? Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Actually, this morning, Varshana Maharaj led the Mangalartik at Srila Prabhupada's palace. And I was amazed at hearing the timbre of a human voice, especially a devotee's voice. You really can pick up on their mood of devotion. I was just so grateful for that. And then Garendra, where's Garendra? She was, she's with the kids, yeah. And she sang President Lorna Sringadev, and she had such spunk, transcendental spunk in her voice. You know, it was like, wow. You know, so each, and everyone has a special, unique timbre to their devotional timbre to their voice. So, thank you so much for sharing your voices. So we can just,
Okay.
yeah. So thank you all. Hare Krishna.
A video clip. It's 20 minutes of unedited edited footage. I hope it's gonna. How do you get a signal here? Do you know how to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Just press the. Let's go. Okay. Wait. Stop. Wait. Microphone so you can hear it. So this is, we're starting out, and I'll just give you the scene. We're in front of the temple. The temple's 1983. We're just building the temple here. Here's all the detail work, the touch-up work. See how much it takes. Kids running around the construction zone. Picture! Woo! This is under the lodge. They're cleaning under the lodge. I don't know who that is. Who is it? Come on. Who is that? John Kapanika. There's the kids working too. Look who this is. Watch. Woo! They're cow-dunging a fire pit for the fire sacrifice to install the deities. If you see anybody and recognize, you can yell out the name. That would. I think that's Kalpaviksha there. Is that a polyurethane? shellacking the floor. Kids. Mother Prayana? Okay, Tila, okay. Narada Muni? Param Brahma! Woo!
I'll tell you someone who's Friday.
Who is that?
What a schedule for today?
There's one post.
I shot them all. I got one.
I don't know. Dina Bandhu? Okay. Devotees are kind of camera shy. There. Vasudev, Ghosh. No. Who's that? Is that Pushkar? Look at this scene here, construction, crazy.
So if you want to take one of these rooms,
Gadadhar. That's Suki. Hi, Vamsa
yeah, you come up the
Suki.
stairs. Now the entrance to get to the stairs is door 5, the door just before the last one. There's 6 doors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So door 5, you take the stairs up to the top floor, and then the brahmacharya like that. Now, if you're coming
Maitreya. I think that's a guest.
Where's Prabhupada? What are you doing here?
Some of it's hard to see, but
No.
The lights are on. Where?
then we got the kids and the machines. Yeah, they're just running around the machines. Rama. Ooh. Look at that.
Hey, you see that ring Bhakti guys?
They're putting every pane of glass in.
We're going to do a show this rock.
Some guests. Okay. That was way back in the 80s. 80s style. Look at the cars. Is that Kaladri? Stop. Turn off that video. I have no idea. I'm not sure. I just got this in the mail from Tulsi. Here's a good one. That looked like one of the things. There you go. Aretha.
Here, what's the way that we clean up? It comes around. Let's organize this game a little bit. Let's get all the breaks. Yeah, get out of here. Get out of here. Okay, we'll get it out. But we need to eat.
Recoding 2 hours.
I'm doing something.
Careful. If you break this, you're gonna have to pay for it.
You'll have to pay for it.
I want to get it there in one piece, right?
You came too late.
No way. They just see like a shadow. It's facing you too. They don't think it's a negative, but it's actually money already actually.
Hare Krishna.
What's the sacrifice thing?
Prabhus fan?
Put your dad on the You were there too. You like it? You like it?
Hey, money.
Don't press it, you're fucking.
Unless I get something good.
See what it's got in it? Look, watch.
Oh, automatic zoom, right? Oh, record? Record? Just record? Hey, what's it do by itself?
It's a computer inside.
Yeah, what was it doing? I didn't do it.
I know.
I didn't see it.
What?
Oh, I see the light button, right?
It's an autofocus.
That's autofocus? What's focus? Middle of picture, the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Okay.
Watch and you'll see.
This is what you see on a regular picture.
It's pretty loud.
It's so damn light.
Get all your controls for this thing here. You can see what you just filmed. You want to see what you just filmed?
I didn't record anything. I'm not seeing it.
Oh, that's what I filmed.
Oh.
All
I
right.
didn't film it.
Pretty neat.
Dance, could you dance and show it to me? Hey, I take a picture, man. Let me see it.
Just tell what you're doing that funny face.
Where is it?
Everyone I showed you. We're gonna have rehearsals after the feast. You know there's gonna be a feast here, right?
Do you know what Dina is? Do you know what Dina is? Okay, do you know what Dina is?
Yeah. That's it.
The whole thing is, like, nothing.
All right. Everyone must take a place.
This is a feast serve out, moving Davin style.
We'll 2 cups. This is the difficulty, you know.
He's dying. Well, I guess whom I should go first? Just get a job. You have to sit inside the right. Why is that, man? Why is that, man?
There's one little more clip of the kirtan. Yes. Yeah. Hours of the installation, but I figured, there's one more little clip of the kirtan.
Hey, you want to go and do that thing now? Cool. Okay. Tell me what was your name?
Okay, that's the end of the clip. Then it's just sort of out, and then it's the whole thing. So that's the clip. Okay, how do you go? Okay, all right. Okay, so now it's time for the men to talk. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to have the people like who are only here for the day or who have to leave early to speak first. Because there's so many more men than women, so I guess you guys got to talk a little shorter, but try to tell really the good stories, the funny stories, the stories about, you know, the building of the palace. This was just kind of... You have a short one? Okay. Go ahead. Kids and women first.
Soma here?
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll remember now. I remember little kids were running around and they just concreted all around. Oh, no, and I think some kids were chasing me and I ran, and I don't know if it was like 3 or 4 blocks I ran through of that Soma had just paved like 4 bricks or 4 levels of the sidewalk, and I ran running right through it, and he took it really, really well.
You were there. Okay, so I'm going to maybe pick on some names, and I know, Kumar, you don't come very often. Would you say something, please? Talk about, because we don't get you very often, so we got to get all the guys we don't get often. Talk about the palace, what you did, and you can tell something about other devotees too.
I'm going to tell a story about Sukavaha, actually.
This is the men's.
So I lived at the Brahmachari ashram for like a year and a half, 2 years. And one of my jobs was to carry all the supplies up to the Brahmachari ashram. So like the milk sweets, whatever they needed, all the cooking stuff, all the pujari stuff. And I had to go see Sakavaha because she had all the keys. And she was in charge of the storage, right, at Bahuban. And you were always the sweetest, person because it was hard to get things back then, and and especially as for everybody actually. But I remember one time I needed boots, and we called them mud boots. Pretty much everybody wore those in the wintertime, and they were just like green rubber boots that came up to here, and I needed boots, and I went to Sakavaha. And it was hard to get anything. And within a couple days, I had boots. And so that was really those boots meant a lot to me until Gargarishi stole them. And then, no, he didn't. He stole my sandals, actually. It wasn't.
I didn't actually steal it, but I knew where they all were.
It was always an interesting thing to put your sandals or your shoes into the rack, and hopefully they would be there when you came back. And one time, well, several times, they were not there, and a lot of times, the first person I would look for is Gargarishi. So thank you, Gargarishi, for keeping track. Another person I'd like to, I want to tell a story about Gopalashapriya, because she was the first devotee I ever met. And I found a Bhagavad Gita, and I had been reading it. This is back in Pittsburgh. And one day I decided I want to meet devotees. I'm making this a really short story. So I went to the airport because I had heard devotees are at the airport. And I went through the center of the airport, through the busiest section where the big hanging sculpture was. And I saw someone who I thought might be a devotee. So I kind of walked really close to her, and it was Gopa. And she, you know, kind of grabbed me almost and started telling me stuff. You know, I can't remember. She's pinning a little flower on me, a little fake daisy, a fake daisy. Yeah, a little fake daisy, telling me about, you know, this bullshit about they're collecting money for something, which wasn't true. and the whole time I'm thinking, what do I tell this woman? And finally I said, do you know what a Bhagavad Gita is? I didn't know how to pronounce it, of course. And she's like what? And I'm like, and she was like totally dumbfounded. Well, before you know it, she had asked me for money, and I told her I only had $7, and I had to get my car inspected, and it cost $7 back then. And so I couldn't give it to her, but I ended up leaving the airport with a stack of books like this, and surrounded by 4 or 5 other female Sankirtan women who were all very fascinated that I knew what Bhagavad Gita was. So that's it. I'm going to make it short.
He paid for those books later on. What did you do? What did you do at the palace? You were in the mold shop. Yeah, so he paid for those. Okay, good. So he paid for that. He paid for his books. Thank you.
I can read them.
You read them? You read them too? Wow, that's a bonus. All right, so I just want to make sure I get the people who might have to leave. You'll be here overnight, right? Okay, so I'm going to pick on people like Jala Kolahali. Yeah, I'm going to pick on you.
You are today, aren't you?
I'm going to pick, because we don't.
I've got nothing but stories about you.
No, just
Even if I have to make them up.
Palace. What did you do at the palace?
Can I use this one? Oh, this one.
I'm picking on you. Sorry.
Thank you. Well, so many stories with Prabhupada's palace, but I think one of the earliest ones, I remember being trained up in the marble shop for cutting, and our Bhagavatananda's not here, is he? But some Bhagavatananda.
Bhagavatananda's not here, but his son is here, Jaya Chaitanya.
Where is that? Okay, good. Well, Bhagavatananda was training me up, cutting marble, and he was so precise with what he wanted, great intelligent guy, that you had to cut like within a 32nd of an inch or something to satisfy him. So that was all right. So I'm training up, and it just so happens that we had gotten a beautiful piece of Turkish onyx it was. It reminded me of the color in the swirls, and it reminded me of a ice cream root beer float. It had those kind of colors in it. It was the only piece we had, and we had to cut this piece very accurately for fitting Prabhupada's new table that he was getting. And so we were in a hurry up. Prabhupada was over here, he was over there. We were trying to cut the marble cut the onyx to fit the table. And so very precisely, as we went up, and Bhagavatananda made out a template, and he traced the thing out, and according to what the space was in the table, we brought it down to the marble shop, traced it out on the piece of onyx, and I began to cut, and I mean, I really had the sight on there. I wasn't going to make a mistake on this one with Bhagavad over my shoulder here. And so we did that and polished it up and went to put it in Prabhupada's table. And Kirtananda Swami at the time was up there with us. And I don't know if Gargaresh, if you were up there at this time or not either, but we went to put the piece of onyx in the table, and it did not fit. It didn't even come close to fitting. And Kirtananda Swami looks at me, and I'm the youngest guy there. Everybody else has been around for a while. And he says, well, you really blew that one. Now what are you going to do? I have no idea what I'm going to do. I had no idea whatsoever. So Bhagavan and I thought, well, maybe so we flipped the piece of marble or piece of onyx upside down, and it fit perfectly. We had polished the wrong side. I don't know what was going on with that, but so we went down and polished it. So Prabhupada's table had both sides of the top were finished. Yeah. That's. You want another one there, huh? One more. Okay. What? One more. I don't know if I have another one here, but there was another one I can remember. I thought we had finished all the cutting of Prabhupada's floors. We had done the study, we'd done the bedroom, and the kitchen floor, and the central floor, the darshan room was being worked on. We were about finished with that, and Kirtananda Swami comes in, and he's got this 2 diagrams on a piece of paper about like this and like that. And there's 2 of them, and he says, well, this is the design for Prabhupada's next floor. And I'm saying, what floor is left to cut? We did all that, and he said, no, this is it. And I said, well, what size are they? What is the actual size? And he said, that is the actual size. These little foot by foot or something like that. And inside was a lot of different pieces. It almost looks like an old world map that you might see in Columbus Times or something. And it's right in front of Prabhupada's as you enter the darshan room. But we had to replace, you may remember, Nitya Prabhu, before you went into Prabhupada's palace there, in the darshan room, there at one time was some, how do you call it, the marble blocks that went around. We had cement blocks there, and then the Carrara marble that was on decorating that. And it went right in front of the doorway entrance. And all this marble was put up, and then we looked, and Kirtananda Swami said, well, take it down. I don't like it there. It's taking up too much room. So all that marble came down, all the cinder blocks came down, and there was a space in between the 2 marbles that met that the cinder blocks were in. And that's about a foot space. So this is where the designs were going. And it needed to be about 8 or 12 of them, something like that. And I asked Kirtananda Swami, he said, well, which one do you want me to do first? He says, quit thinking linearly. I want them both at once. So we proceeded to do both at once, small marble pieces, and that was very nice. So thank you very much for your time listening. Thank you. I hope that's okay.
Thank you. You did good. Okay. So it's 4 o'clock. We've got till 6 o'clock, and I know we got a lot of guys. So we're going to try to do like 5-6 minute talks. Does that sound good? I mean, we can extend them a little bit, but let's see here. You want to say something, Mark? No? You're not going to tell a story about driving, excavating, huh? Later? Okay. Pavitra, yeah. How many want Pavitra to talk next?
My stories were all really mundane. I mean, I'm serious. Joel was just talking about that wall. I stuffed that wall with newspapers for insulation. And while I was doing it, this is 77 maybe? 76. It was 78. I'll tell you why I know. I was stuffing it, and all of a sudden I read the headline. It said, Pitt wins national championship. I'm from Pittsburgh. That was my team. I didn't have nothing to do with that for a couple of years. Then I saw that. Like, oh, man, they won the national championship. Wow. Couldn't believe it. I mean, I was like, then I thought, well, I'm in Maya. I shouldn't be reading these papers, you know. Then I didn't know who to tell. I was looking for somebody from Pittsburgh. Hey, man. Anyway, big deal, you know. How I came to Krishna consciousness is real mundane. I gave up, you know, smoking and drinking. I was at the health club. I was in a health club for a while trying to get healthy, and I picked this guy up hitchhiking. he says, hey, you want to smoke a joint? And I said, no, I'm getting all healthy. You know, I'm getting into some stuff. He goes, what are you into? I'm like, oh, you know, I was thinking about doing some judo soon. He goes, really? I said, yeah, but I got this book on it, and there's this prayer in there you're supposed to say every day. And it is, at the end it says, I have no mother and father. Om is my mother and father. I said, do you know what that means? He says, no, but here, take this. And it was a feast card for the Pittsburgh Temple. He said, these people know about that. Wow. I said, all right. I put it in my, you know, my visor, and I took him home, and I'm looking at this card, and it says, you know, feast from 4 to 8 or something. And like, I don't know these people. I don't know. I'm not going to go for dinner. I'm going to go late after it's over and just ask them. So I go up to the address, and I'm like looking for the house. It's right up from Pitt University. And I'm looking, and all of a sudden I see this house. It's painted pink, orange, green. I'm like, what is it? You know, I couldn't figure out what the heck this is. So that's the house. I'm like, whoa. So I go up, and I see all these shoes on the floor. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people here. So I knock on the door, and at the time I didn't know who it was, but it was Premika. She came to the door in her sari with the thing over her face, and the perfume hit me from the incense, and I thought, I'm really mundane. I thought, wow, is this a cat house? Like, is this how they paint him? Like, I don't have any experience. And I was like, this lady, I'm like, wow. So she says, have you ever been here before? I'm like, you know, I want to be a man and say yes, but I hadn't. So, but I thought maybe you get a discount or something. I don't know. I said, yeah, I've been here before. She goes, okay, come on in. And she starts walking up the steps, and I'm like, oh, I got to get out of here. She goes, no, don't come up here. You sit right there and wait. I'm like, oh, it's a waiting line. Okay. So I'm sitting there thinking, I got to get out. This ain't me. You know, I'm not going to go through with this. And all of a sudden, right in front of me, these 2 doors opened up. And it was the temple room, and I thought the sun was out. I'm like, wow, what is that? I walk into this room, and the first thing I thought was, these people know something I don't. Like, it hit me like, these people are all really intelligent. They know what's going on, and I'm like scared. So I'm like, hey, do you know what Om means? Because as soon as you tell me, I'm leaving. So I think it was Boat or somebody said, hey, just come in and sit down. He had like a little plate. And I thought it was one of, you know those things that artists use, like a palette, and it's got all those different colors on it? Well, it was a Maha plate, but it just had these little bits on it. And I thought, they want me to paint something? And I really didn't know what it was. And then somebody says, no, and they're all looking at me because the devotees that were there and the guests knew. You know, everybody knows, Maha, I want some. They were checking me out like, so I didn't know what to eat. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to try. But right in the middle, there was this little pleated cup, like you get ketchup into places, and it had a white substance in it with a raisin right in the middle. So I said, that looks innocent enough. Hit that, it was sweet rice, and I went, wow. Blew my mind. I was totally like, this place is happening. Like, I look up, and Amrita Prada, Bimbadar's first wife, was right across me, and she looked up and started smiling at me real happy, like, and I was like, I said, do you know what Om means? She goes, no. I'm like, oh, man. So then I asked the guy next to me, you know what Om means? He goes, no, but we're going to get a Bhagavad Gita, and we'll find out. Meanwhile, I'm still thinking, I don't know. I think I still want to leave. Like, it's just too foreign for me, you know? Anyway, a lot of crazy stuff happened. Later on, Adwaita, and I think it was him, took me upstairs with a bunch of other new people and sat us down and said, we're going to chant the Maha Mantra. So they had this board behind them that had Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. They gave me beads. I start chanting. I didn't even know the words were repeating until about halfway through. I'm like, oh, there's only 3 words. Oh, okay. It took me forever. Anyway, we finally get done, which seemed like a long time to me. But the girl next to me starts, oh, I can't believe it. You chilled a whole run of it. Oh, you're going to, she was so excited for me. I'm like, I didn't even know what I was doing. You know? Anyway, when I went to leave, Dharmatma, who was running the temple, hit me up. Hey, you're going to want this Bhagavad Gita. I'm like, well, same as who was here. I said, I got $7. I got to get gas. He goes, give me $5 and you can have it. So it really worked on me. I went home, started reading Bhagavad Gita, and by chapter 13, I was in Vrindavan.
Okay, who else is going to sneak out the back door? So we have to get them before they sneak out. Ram Gopal? Yeah. We don't get these guys too often, so we gotta want to hear.
This is a tough act to follow here. I'll think of one of Ali Ladini over there, and there was a time when we first came in here about 1983, and we had a vehicle and stuff, and we could get around, and Ladini asked my wife, Janavi now, if she would take her to Imperial Display to get some supplies and stuff. So Janavi says, okay. And so they go and pick her up, and then Ladini comes to get out to get in the car, and she's walking, and she's kind of walking like this, you know, and scuffling her feet, and Janavi was going to ask her what happened there at first, but then she looked down. She said, Ladini had one boot about the size 12 and the other one about a size 8, you know, and she was only this big. And Janavi asked her what happened. She says, well, someone took my boots and this is all I could find. And so they end up going like this in the store, trying to get her stuff, but she didn't care about it. And then she goes to Janavi and says, "You're really a nice devotee for helping me do this." And Janavi says, "You know, I'm really not a devotee. I'm a friend of devotee. I want to help them. I would give you a ride and stuff, but being a devotee, that's too much." And then he would look at her and say, "That's what makes you a devotee." And Janavi said, "Oh, no, I'm not joking, you know. I'm really serious. I am really not a devotee." And the more she get animated about it, the more Ladini would say, "And that's what makes you a devotee." Okay, that's another quick one there. I'll take another quick one about her, too. When I first came here, it was in the winter, it come out, and spring was coming out, and we were living at Bahulaban above the barn. And I would go back and forth. I was working at the front office there, and one day I noticed in the spring there was this cow there, and the cow, its udder was really beat up, like somebody cut it or something. It looked really messed up, and I asked Ambrish, I said, "What's going on over there?" And he says, "Well, that cow has gangrene." And it was really pitiful to look at. It looked like Swiss cheese on a pizza, with blood on it and green. It was just really ugly. And so we were just going to put it up to old Vrindavan up there and just give it its happy days and wish it goodbye. But at that time, Ladini was up there too. And she was working up there. And another quick note that I could remember, she had to get her supplies to go up there and this and that, and really couldn't get up there. But people might remember this, but Chaitanya Shatru, right? Yeah, okay, he would help her out, and he would literally carry 100 pounds of rice and grain on each shoulder, and he would walk all the way up to Old Vrindavan from Bahulaban. He wouldn't put the bags down until he got there. One of the most amazing creatures that ever come here. And he's no longer with us, but I'm sure that he's good to go. Yeah, Chaitanya. Anybody remember Chaitanya? Right? Let's hear it for him. Yeah. So we go up there, and then I went up there for some reason. Actually, when I went up there was prasad, because the best prasad was at Vrindavan, but you had to walk up there to go get it. So one day I went up there to go get some, whatever, and then I walked over there, and she had a cow over there was going on, and I said, well, what happened to that cow that had the gangrene? Did you get another one or what? And she said, no, the cow is healed. And I said, really, that's the same cow? And she said, yeah. And she said all she did was, threw the boga out, or the prasad, leftover prasad in a pile, and that's what that cow ate, and it became fully healed again. That might be a lesson for all of us. So, all right, I'm going to turn this over to somebody else.
Thank you guys for sharing those gems. We would never know that. Thank you. See, it's the guys that don't talk so much. They have some really gems to share. So thank you so much. Is Sankirtan here, or did he have to go? Oh, man, I missed him. He said 4 o'clock, and I was completely lost what time it was. So I'll have to see if he can come tomorrow morning again. Who else is only going to be here for the day? Is anybody? Pipalata? Ekachakra, you're going? Okay, you're next. You guys can call out the shots. I'll just hand the mic over. Yeah, you can do it.
I'll try. How are you? My name is Ekachakra, and I'm nervous. Anyways, I came here in 77, and I wanted to work in the wood shop, and I think Soma took me under his wing, and whatever, word got out, I guess, that whatever, I was into woodworking. One day, Bhaktipad approached me, and he said, oh, Eka, I hear you're a woodcutter. And I thought, oh, geez, I'm going to get to carve wood panels, you know, like carvings and whatnot. He said, go see Baba Shot, and he's got a chainsaw for you. Anyway, I don't want to tell any more stories, and I'm really glad I'm here. I'm glad I got to meet you people, and I hope to meet you all again someday. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Sweet, sweet. Okay, who are we calling on next? Who? Kulavecho Sridhars. Where are you? There you are. Okay, good. Yeah. Thank you.
Namaste, everybody. How you doing? I'm Kulavecha. I had the great fortune to come here when I was 15 years old. The first time I came to New Vrindavan was about March of 1974. And Advaita Acharya and I were very good friends before he joined. I think he came in January of that year. But my first visit, I want to tell you about the first visit. It was classic. I took a Greyhound bus from New York City to Wheeling, okay? And again, I was 15. Ed brought me to the temple the previous summer. He was my grass dealer. I was buying grass from him, and I went to, anyway, I went, and he threw me in the car, and he brought me to Brooklyn Temple. That was in 1973. But, so anyway, in March of 74, he came, and the first time Samba, the older Samba, picked me up from Wheeling, from the Wheeling bus station, in a little VW, a Volkswagen Bug, right, which had no seats in it. And it was filled with mud. It was great. And so so I come in, and he was hardly could see through the windshield. And I'm sitting here, he's going, okay, we're going to New Vrindavan. I said, well, I was asking him all these questions, how long does it take, and this, that, and the other thing. So we get to New Vrindavan, and it was, that's where the first time I heard the word loka, mud loka, right? Because we came out of in Bahulaban, we dropped me off in front of the temple there, and I was coming to visit Adwaita and Megamala. So we walked across. I guess the new barn was just being built. So this is a classic story. So I came up, and I remember vividly that the first room, there was only 3 rooms that were occupied by the devotees back then. The first room was, and I had the great fortune to meet all these great souls that day and still know them, but Turu and Mahara were in the first room, right? And the second room was Lodge and Sudanu. And then Megamala and Adwaita had the third room. So I came up, and none of the other rooms were done, it was just being built. So I said to Ed, and I had a little sleeping bag. So I said to Ed, we greeted each other, and I got to meet Sudanu and Lodge and Taru, which became a very good friend of mine, and I miss him dearly. And he treated me like a brother. Taru was really, and we all know Taru, and it was really sweet. But so now this is a funny story I just want to tell, that I said to Ed, well, where am I going to stay? So there was some sheetrock that were on the floor. He put it up against the wall, and he made a little teepee, and he goes, right there. and that was it. And then I want to tell one more thing, because Samba befriended me on the trip in, and I really didn't know anybody else between Samba and then with Ed, and I met Sudano and that. But then the next morning I was thinking, where do you bathe? And if you remember, in Bahulaban, there was, you walked to Kaladri's cabin there, that little cabin, and there was a little pond. I don't know, that's where they, and I remember Samba saying, we had to crack the ice, and there was buckets, there was plastic buckets. And he did it first. He knelt down. I'm like, are you crazy? I'm from New York. I can't do this. So that was my whole initiation of New Vrindavan. It was really great. It was fantastic. And there's so many other stories I can tell. When I came back, and I had the great fortune to come for the initiation. Ed and a whole bunch of devotees got initiated that summer. And I came back for that big party. But there's others, but I'll let somebody else talk. But I'm really lucky to be here, and I love all you guys. Thanks so much.
How about Ganendra and Partha? Want to say something? You could say something about Ambarish and then something about yourself. This is Ambarish's brother, Ganendra. Woo!
Thank you. Sure. Well, that's how I'm always going to be known, as Ambarish's brother. He was an amazing guy. The way he got here was through Vijaya. She found a devotee in downtown Denver, and he gave her a Back to Godhead. And she saw this and said, wow, that's where I want to go. So they hit off and took him a little bit of convincing. But they ended up at New Vrindavan, and this was in '71, so there was just the old Vrindavan. And as they were coming up the road, they're walking, and it was springtime, and beautiful flowers and trees and birds, and he turned to her and said, I don't think we're ever going to leave this place. And of course, he stayed for a long time. Well, a year later, he came to Denver and said, you have to join me. And I said, well, before that, though, he sent me a letter and said, I'm at this great place. It's called New Vrindavan. We work hard all day, and it's bliss. And anyway, he came up to Denver. And within 3 months, he and Vijaya had convinced myself and Vijayapriya, Partha's mom, to join. Well, we didn't really want to go to the farm. I grew up in the city and everything, and as other people have said, a lot of the city temples don't want to let you go, but Denver was okay letting us go because they didn't want married couples. So we went to LA, and LA was interesting for a little while, but my brother kept encouraging me, and Chakradari, many of you know, he had lived in New Vrindavan, and came to LA and was talking about how great it was, and just he had so many wonderful stories, and the cows and the devotees and everything, and they're building this great, wonderful New Vrindavan. So he convinced me. So Luigi Priya and I came out to New Vrindavan. She really didn't want to come out, but I did, and so she followed. And Partha by then was about 1.5 years old. And so I actually came first. I hitchhiked from Denver to New Vrindavan. And I spent the night with some crazy guys up off of 250. And they got there about midnight when I got in, and they said, well, you can just stay out here on our balcony. That's fine. If somebody comes out and pees on, out the balcony, don't worry about it. That's what we do. So I said, okay, well, I'll just stay here. And he said, in the morning when you go, if you just see that road over there, all you need to do is walk down that road. So I said, okay, great. Well, so I stayed the night, got up the next morning and started walking down. And the road from 250, how it's just a really pretty sight coming down the road. And I walked and I walked, and finally here comes, I can't remember who, in a little pickup truck, and said, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to New Vrindavan. He said, well, jump in, I'll take you there. So he took me, and I got out of the car. And he asked me who I was. I told him I'm Ganendra. He said, oh, you're Ambarish's brother. All right. So I got out of the car, and he says, hey, Ambarish was up above. And he says, hey, Ambarish, Ganendra's here. And Ambarish came running up and down. He said, Ganendra's here, Ganendra's here. So he was real excited about it. So I had been living in the cities. And I had these little kind of mesh shoes. And mesh shoes didn't mesh with New Vrindavan. So I started walking up, and within a few steps, my shoe was stuck in the mud, and my foot was in the other side. And so he tells me, okay, well, we'll get you some shoes. He takes me to a room where they had boots. And there were all kinds of different shoes in there, and I found a pair of cowboy boots that were about size 12, and I have about size 9 foot. And so I wore those for quite a while. Like we heard described, we wear whatever boots we can. And so the first thing I did working here was with Tejomaya, I believe. And we had to dig an outhouse trench right there at Bahulaban, and worked hard all day long. And about every couple hours, Bhaktipad would come by. How you doing? You doing okay? Did that with everybody. Come see how things are progressing. And so I thought, well, yeah, maybe I can handle this. Well, after a couple of weeks of doing some really hard work, well, one of them was up here at the palace. There was only about 3 walls up, the archway walls that were up. They were just cement, of course, at that time. So for the first week or so, I worked doing that, mixing the cement. And I think Soma might have been there working on it. I can't remember who all. But we had somebody who would bring the rocks for the cement, and then they'd put sand, and then they'd put the concrete, the cement itself, and then pour water on it. So we would go by with shovels around in a circle and mix the cement, and then we'd load it up into the wheelbarrow, and they'd take it over and pour it, and they'd come back, and that was an all-day thing, lifting one after another after another. By the end of the day, you're so tired, you cannot even blink. So I worked on that for a while. I did a few other things, but then Ambarish had an opening in the barn. And so for the next 3 years, he and I worked side by side with the cows, going up to the pastures, and that's some of the best times of my life, without a doubt, working next to my brother like that. And I always get a little teary when I think about him, because he was such a great guy. But anyway, I was able to work with him for a long time, and if any, all of those who remember him know that he was one class act. He he had more energy than anybody. He would not walk back and forth. He would run. He would run. That was the way he did. He said, well, I got to get there now. I can't wait until I walk there. I got to get there now. But he's probably, well, he was my closest friend growing up. We were pretty close in age. And of course, as we grew into adulthood, we were the closest too. But anyway, that's my little bit of a story. Thank you.
And we all know Ambarish for his ecstatic kirtans and sweet rice. He would cook sweet rice all night long, every Saturday night. And it was there. I've never tasted any sweet rice like his since then. There was just no, of course it was cow's milk and everything like that. So it was cooked over an open pit. So, right, the flavor. Do you want to say something?
What's that? I'll say one. I have to apologize before I start because I don't know how long the story is going to take. It's a story that I just remembered, it like bubbled up from my memory because I was looking at our beautiful new sign out there in front of the thing, and I'm not a New Vrindavan red person. I came in the orange times. If you look at that sign, there's a red period, an orange period, then there's the tan period. And I mean the brown period, then there's the tan period, then there's the green period. So I came at the end of the orange period, and I was gone already by the green period. Yeah, if you look at that sign that's right in front of RBC building, it has New Vrindavan segged into.
Give us the year. The year is going to just help us. When did you come?
From the red period is from 1970. What is it? 78 to, yeah. Right, because the years aren't the same. I have trouble remembering. But now I'm always going to think of it as the red period, the early period, the struggle period of one kind, and then after that, there was the period that came after that with the development of New Vrindavan, Bahulaban, all this kind of stuff, the RVC being built, the palace being built. Then there was the experimental period, which starts with the brown period, and the tan period after that. So I remember those. At any rate, you can look at it. You'll see it in front of the RVC building, and you can know what I was talking about. I just figured that since you all put it up, that I didn't think of it. It's the kind of thing that I would think of, but I didn't think of it. So at any rate, it's an interesting thing how Prabhupada came, and he brought something that I'm sure I would not even be alive. I would be in my next meow meow or woof woof body at this time if I had not somehow connected with Prabhupada's message. And how that happened had some interesting, strange twists to it. And I was just thinking how New Vrindavan first impacted me, which I had actually completely forgotten about. I was born in a little town just north of New York City called the Bronx. And I didn't grow up there. I grew up in Missouri. My father was a veterinarian, and he went to work for the United States Department of Agriculture as a meat inspector. And we left New York City, and we went to Missouri, several different places. But I wound up actually joining in California. So the story of how that happened was that 1970, I was going to high school. I graduated high school at McDonald County High, which is, the name says it all. It was in the southwest corner of Missouri. Little place, 1,000 people. And then I went to college first year in MSSC, Missouri Southern State College. my second year, I went to MU, which is the big college in Missouri, in Columbia, called Missouri University. And at that time, I had a girlfriend, and she was going to college in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Tulsa, Oklahoma, it's a long ways from Columbia, Missouri. They're about, I think, 500 miles apart, something like that. But one weekend I would go down there, and one weekend she would come up to where I was. So it was this big, long thing. And at the end of my college sophomore year, my second year of college, I got a letter in the mail. And the letter said, "We've been watching you. Your grades are good." I was an electronic engineering student, by the way. And they said, "Your grades are really good. We'll pay your whole college tuition if you just come and work for us in the summer." And it hit me. Really? I'm going to work for some company in St. Louis, Missouri in the summer? And I'm going to go to, this is going to be my whole life. I loved science and math and engineering and those kind of things. I loved it. And then I thought, this is really going to be my life. And it freaked me out. I said, no, actually, by the way, the interesting thing was the company that offered to pay for my college tuition was Monsanto Chemical. Just see how we're at crossroads sometimes, and our life could have been very different. And you know, my parents were completely crushed that I turned down this possibility for a scholarship and everything. But instead, I quit college, and I moved down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I was living there with my girlfriend. And she had been going to TU, Tulsa University, and she was staying in a girls' dormitory there called Lottie Jane Mabie. Now, I'm not making this up. There was some famous lady in Tulsa, Oklahoma named Lottie Jane Mabie, and they named a residence hall after her. So she had 3 roommates. There was my girlfriend, there was Nancy, and there was Jeannie, and there was Muggsy. Again, I'm not making these names up. These were the 4 girls that stayed together. And during the summer, I had moved out and I dropped out of college, and my girlfriend had dropped out of college too. And I think both of these girls, all these girls had dropped out as well. That was the time when everybody was doing that, the summer of love period, back when dinosaurs ruled the earth and all that kind of thing. And I remember that Jeannie and Nancy disappeared for the summer. And, you know, we hadn't heard anything about them. They were my girlfriend's best friends. And around late, that must have been 1972. Late in the year, my girlfriend said, "Jeannie and Nancy are back." And I said, "Really? Okay, where have they been?" She said, "I'm not sure where they were." And so Jeannie and Nancy came over, and Jeannie was wearing a sari, and she had these a whole string of silver, bracelets, and she was all Haribo and Prabhupada and things like that, and they had been in some place in West Virginia, and somehow or other they had contacted the devotees, and so, I asked her, "Well, what's that outfit?" She said, "Oh, it's a sari, it's auspicious." And I said, "Oh, well, why are you wearing all those bracelets, those silver bracelets?" She says, "It's auspicious." And I thought, mental note, look up the word auspicious. So they said a bunch of, things that I couldn't understand or relate to. And it's interesting how these things work. About a week or two later, Nancy said, not Nancy, but Jeannie said her brother was coming. And it turns out that Jeannie was from a fairly wealthy family, and her brother was from the same family. They lived in St. Louis. Now, she was going to school down in Tulsa, just like my girlfriend was, but she was also from the St. Louis area, kind of up where I was. And her brother was named Jai Ramdas, who became one of the ISKCON early artists. And he was coming to give us a presentation of Krishna consciousness. And that was in Randy Kindy's apartment. I remember we went there, and you know, all of us were there, and Jai Ramdas came in, and he cooked prasadam for us, and he made sweet balls. And I had never tasted a Simply Wonderful. I said, "What in the world is that?" And he said, "Oh, it's a Simply Wonderful." And I remember I had always been the kind of person that had talked about various kinds of, you know, philosophy and things like that. So by hearing these different kinds of philosophy, I asked him questions, and I realized that Krishna consciousness had a price. So I was not ready to pay that price. That would come later. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to ask Marudev. Marudev just showed up. Woo! Thank you.
I tell you, I was working at a, I was working at a bar at night, and then I was landscaping during the day. Where was this? This was in Niagara Falls, New York.
You can also tell stories about the palace too.
Well, I'm building up to it.
Okay,
This is
okay.
part of the story. Okay, so basically what happened was I got the book, The Nectar of Devotion, and I'd gone to Buffalo Temple a couple times. And so here I was working this steak and seafood place. I wasn't smoking, I wasn't drinking, and I wasn't eating meat. Now, I remember being in this like red tuxedo with tails and bow tie and you know, like whatever. And then I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? So anyhow, so I was working on the weekends, but I had been to the temple a couple times, but because I was working on the weekends, I couldn't get back to the temple. So I was talking to somebody, and they says, look, if you get on this bus, there's this bus, this guy Vishnu John comes, and Tamal Krishna. So for 6 months, I was actually trying to break and get out. So it's Saturday night, I couldn't find Bidwell Parkway, and I gave him a call. I think it was Sundakar that answered, you know. And I says, hey, when's that bus coming? And they says, they says, you mean Tamal Krishna and Vishnu John? Well, they're coming tomorrow. So I did get on the bus, and I thought, well, you know, we'll just try it out for a couple of weeks, see if we like it. So one of the first places we came to, New Vrindavan. And then I was like, my eyes are like wide open. There's a whole nother like lifestyle here, living in the woods and, you know, with this Krishna consciousness thing. So anyhow, we went to different temples and the Sankirtan and all that stuff, and I ended up getting exchanged for someone who collected more money in Gainesville. So then I was at the home of Garunga Potatoes, and nice temple. And then I ended up in Miami, and then like 9 months later, I came home, and nobody in my house knew where I was, where. So I was back at Niagara Falls for a while, and then I ended up coming to New Vrindavan, and that's like how I got here. I mean, I like the idea of like, wow, look at this. We're going up to this brahmachari ashram, and you're living like a monk in these woods here. Look at these beautiful woods and this water, and you know, like all that, you know. So anyhow, so I was here, and there was a guy named Vrindapati before me, and the gates that were made by him prior to me being here are now Jagannath's gates. So I started doing this thing where I would have gates. So I did Nisringa's gates, did let me see who. Sitaram Gates over there did that. Did the Rose Garden arches and some railings at the palace. Then it was like I just wanted to expand my shop, and so Bhaktipada says, "Well, if you do a lot of work this summer," he says, "we'll expand your shop for you." So I did about a quarter mile of fence down here, you know. So when I was done, I says, "Well, can I expand my shop?" He goes, "Well, you didn't do nothing yet." So then apparently I realized there were certain people like that were susceptible to that, like Kashapa, you know, that they would just do these works, but then it was like they didn't get nothing, sort of say, you know. But anyhow, I just kind of ended up where we were in the Devamrita mode, where it was like, you aren't pure enough for the center. You must go away. And I says, you know, I'm not eating meat. I'm not, you know, I'm following the 4 regs. I go, sometimes I like to spend my devotion in the shop, and I can't get up, and I don't have a star after my name, you know. But that was it. It was like, then it was like, you gotta go. When you going? You gotta go. Then it was like, and then Bhaktipat pulled up one time from my shop. You gotta move. And I says, I am moving. And then he's like, oh, where are you going? That's about it. There's like a whole mess of like other stories and things that I had experienced here. And
Mario.
oh my God. My father was like this, like 270-pound fire chief, you know, World War II vet, you know, and I was just dragging my trunk out of the house, and my father pulled up out in front of the van, and he, Poonj was in the passenger side, like he couldn't get low enough in that seat, you know. And I threw it in and slid the door, and I started going, and then he walked out into the middle of the street, and I went up over the curb and went around him like that. And when I actually went to Buffalo Temple the second time, I didn't bring them. I mean, they were in my van. Gorny Ty was in my van. I remember bringing them to Sudano in the mold shop there, and he like opened the container and just, you know, it was quite a moment.
Palace. What did you do all the gates? Did you do some of the gates? Did you tell that story? Did you tell that
I
already?
think there was a time when I had left, and then Vrajakishor was here for a 6 or 9 month period. He made a set of gates, and then, but that was directly in, and then they actually sold those gates and used the money for something else, you know. Yeah, it was all self-taught, and I would do things like go away for a weekend, and there was a master smith there, and you would learn from them, and then come back, and then you would, like, you know, do that particular work. You would make it as part of your work, you know, like that. You know, sometimes there were like several processes, and one of them was a collar where you take 2 pieces of metal together and you don't weld them, but then the collar shrinks and holds them together. It's very old style. And then I wanted to practice my collaring. So there was 7,000 collars or something like that up in the Rose Garden, you know.
Wow.
So, and then other times you were practicing, like twisting was another process. Another one was like splitting and opening out the metal. I mean, I felt very like emotional about I'm doing something to protect the deities, you know. I mean, that's the way I felt.
Got these guys coming out of the woodwork here. You know, huh? Out of the metalwork, out of the metal woodwork. Yeah, the metalwork, right, not the woodwork, right. Sudhanu Prabhu can't be here because he's ill. He has shingles. I'm wondering, huh? He's doing a lot better, but would somebody like to say something about Sudhanu did? Kumar, could you say something? Or one of the, come on. Can you do that? Okay, together. Yay. You guys are together. Aren't you glad you came, Kumar? Aren't you glad you came?
Yes, I am. I'm glad I came. So go ahead, Rish.
Oh.
Rish, well, I should start by saying that Sudhanu, Gargarishi, myself, and several other people over the years all worked in the mold shop.
Right.
We enjoyed the fiberglass resins a lot.
We wore a mask on our head.
Yeah, we wore the mask up here because it really worked the best. We would order polyester resins by the truckload. Like literally, a semi would pull up with 60 barrels of resin and solvents.
Black Tuffy.
And Black Tuffy, which is a rubber. And then we would just enjoy the rest of the month, right?
Close the doors and, then start performing devotional service. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a story about the swan boat. I was telling Sudhanu tonight because Soma sculpted the swan boat, which is amazing. And then he made molds of it out of plaster. And then those huge molds were brought down by truck to the mold shop from the art studio that sits up on the hill there. And we brought that all inside, and we put it back together again. And we had this machine, which is a pretty cool machine. It shot resin, catalyst, and chopped fiberglass all at the same time. It's a fiberglass machine. And that's how we made the swan boat. And a lot of other things that you see. Yeah, a lot of the things you see, the fiberglass things in the temple, it was all done with this machine as part of the process. But the swan boat, you had to go inside of it, and you had to spray this stuff, which is incredibly toxic. And it's, I don't know if anybody's been in the swan boat, but you have, okay. It's not very big inside. Someone's been in it. And so I was in there spraying, and, it's incredible amount of fumes and stuff. And so I had to, jump out every once in a while. And it was the middle of winter, and we didn't have good heating because everything was wood fired back then. And, the shop was kind of cold. And so I took a heat gun and hung it inside the swan boat, thinking that that'll heat up, yeah. And so I come back like, 10 minutes later, and I look inside, and the heat gun is spinning around in a circle, and there's a flame coming out of the heat gun like this long. And anyway, that's a typical mold shop kind of story. But
yeah, a lot of, well, Sudhanu, let me say this, between Bhaktipad, Kaladri, Bhagavatananda, Sudhanu, they were Krishna manifested through them all these incredible creativity. Anything you see at the palace, all the designs, all the color combinations, all the, everything there, all the intricate, all the little pieces and everything really came through those individuals. They were that creative, a very intense creative force there. It was just so intense. Sometimes you couldn't understand how it was all working together, but it did. And Sudhanu he was called the boss. He just ran the mold shop, and incredible devotee. Also addressed the deities. We all addressed the deities back then. And cook, yeah. He was responsible for the 1976 quarantine. Because Sudhanu got back from India. He went to learn sculpture, and he got back. Sudhanu's back. Okay, get him in the pits. They had the pits, and they were literally the pits. We had outside the kitchen. We had our little grills, put our big 40-gallon pots there,
we're firing up with the wood, and we're cooking all our preps out there. And Sudano came back and made this great sabji. And the next day, or well, it wasn't that short of a time, but within a few days, people started gradually turning yellow because they got jaundice. It wasn't the turmeric, no. It was right in the middle of still, we're battling the locals, let's put it that way. Literally battling the locals from 71 to about 76. Started calming down, but anyway, Sudano is a wonderful devotee. I worked with him for many years. We're making mridangas, we're making shower stalls, helping them with all the mold work at the palace. And then Kumar came in a little bit later. So, sorry to be here.
Oh, sorry. Sudano asked me this evening, Gargarishi and I went to go see him, and he's like, Kumar, do you remember that bottle? There was a glass bottle. It was on the shelf, and it had this gray stuff in it and some water. And I'm like, no, I don't remember. He goes, well, you know the footprints at the palace that when Prabhupada came, we made footprints of Prabhupada? Well, we used this gray clay. And the footprints are still at the palace, by the way. It's that gray thing. That's the gray clay. Prabhupada put his feet right in that. But after they were done, they washed off Prabhupada's feet, and Kaladri, I guess, or maybe it was you and Sudano, saved the water and the mud that was left over, and they put it in this bottle.
Mayonnaise jar.
It was a mayonnaise jar,
Yeah.
And it sat on the shelf in the mold shop for years, and I looked at it probably every day and had no idea what it was. And we don't know what happened to it, but what's that? Yeah, and I have to say, like, Sudanu saved me because, and no offense to Bhagavatananda, but I worked with Bhagavatananda, and he was like the most incredible artist I've ever worked with, but he was also super intense. And sometimes he had like a really good day, and sometimes it wasn't so good. And if you were in his way, you might like experience some of his yeah. And so, but every once in a while, I would get really down in the dumps, and I would go to Sudanu, and because Sudanu worked with Bhagavad as well, and so he would always he always knew how to like cheer me up and keep me together, and so he was like a big brother to me.
Yeah, me also.
Yeah, it really, like, without Sudanu, I wouldn't have stayed in New Vrindavan. Definitely. Yeah.
No, I feel very similar to that. We were just very close, and we did a lot of stuff together and dressed the deities together. He just would dress Jagannath, I would dress Vrindavan Chandra. And, we were just a family, and we were on the altar, we were milking the cows, we were building the palace. That was it.
One day, I was a brahmachari for the first 12 years, and one day Sudanu came in the shop, and he had a pie that Lajavati had made, and he's like, hey, I got some pie, and I don't know why I just thought of this, but I wouldn't eat it because it didn't come from the altar, and I thought it was evil.
From a woman.
Yeah, and Sudanu never offered me anything else again after. Yeah, we had this booth in the shop because, like, we needed heat for certain rubbers to cure, and we used like tons of rubber and all kinds of epoxies and stuff. Sometimes, and we would take naps in there. It was like a closet that you could. You remember that?
Yeah, I woke up once and I was so sleepy, and I turned on that fiberglass machine, but I turned it on backwards and I shut myself. Resin in the eye without the catalyst, so I was able to wash it out. But that's from sleeping a little too long in the mold shop.
Yeah. Sudanu was amazing to work with. He and I was thinking about this today because, like, I learned so many things here, and people comment, they're like, how do you know how to do all these things? You know, like people that I know from Pittsburgh, and what it occurred to me that I learned a lot of things at the community, for sure, because there was so many like talented people like Maru and Sudhanu and Gargarishi, and I could just go on and on, Pushkar and Nityo and Judd, but what I really learned, I think, at the community is that we were allowed to experiment. Like, Bhaktipada would say, hey, I need this. I need a swan boat. And then, Soma never made a swan boat, right? No, but we were allowed to just do stuff without any care whether it would be successful or not. And I think that is an amazing thing to learn, and a lot of people never get that opportunity in life to just be able to experiment and just try something without any restriction. Yeah, we had like all this freedom, and I think that was an important thing that a lot of us learned in New Vrindavan. Maybe we don't realize it. I realize it, but yeah.
I have a little story about that. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. I was the first community doctor. No medical experience, zero. But one day we were going through this whole phase. Of course, we want to become self-sufficient. We want to live off the land. We want to use all the nature's medicines to cure ourselves. All that, right? So Bhaktipada said, well, you've failed everything else so far. Maybe you could be the doctor. So, and somebody found this book called Dr. Chase's Home Remedies, dated 1827 or something. It had really strange, but the fact is, this is the way people lived, just that short time ago, living off the land, and just going to a simple pharmacy. Back then, you could buy opium and all these different things which they use for cures. So I'd look in this book, and it said, curing cough, 1 part hydrochloric acid, myrrh, bark of oak tree, the dust off a caterpillar's legs. Just really wild stuff. But they used this. So I became the doctor, and I lived in Bhaktipada's cabin then. A lot of us did. Bhaktipada had his cabin, and a couple people in the back, we're in the front. So the a little room, one of the 2 rooms in the back became the hospital. So if you got sick, you had to come see Dr. Rishi, right? And then somebody thought, well, you know what? We have this penicillin for the cows. It's called Masty Mash. A little vial. You put your needle in there and pull it out, and then the cows get mastitis. It's an infection of the udder. You shoot a little mastitis up one of their teats, and it cures. It works very well. So we thought it should work on the devotees. We're very well connected to the cows. Right. So if you got sick, right, first you had to admit you were sick. A lot of people just like, I'm not sick. They're just like, you're sick, Prabhu. Go see Rishi. Come up to the cabin, and I had this little aluminum bowl, and I had a little hot plate, and I got some needles from the barn, and I thought, I don't know if these needles are too big. Is number 8, 9, or 10? I don't know. 10, okay. And they look, this one's a little bent, but it's boil up the needle, okay. All right, come on here, Prabhu, and I go, let's see, what do doctors do? So I go, oh yeah, bend over, and slap on the butt or the arm, you get your choice. And then, and people are looking at the boiling needle over here, and they go, well, you're boiling the needle. I go, yeah, boiling the needle. And they'd watch me try to get the bubbles out. Some ran at that point. Wait, I get bubbles, nasty mash, and okay, then boom, give them a shot. But it worked. Nobody died, and I don't think so. Okay. Nobody got sick. So that went on for a little while. And then you had to learn cures like, okay, fresh cow dung, right? Right on the wound, which does work, right out of the cow. But I say, go to the cow and just, when they're plopping, grab it and put it on the wound. And some people did that. It was a little scary for some people. And then we did, a lot of the things with herbs and, clover was great if you had constipation, which happens sometimes. Often we didn't have constipation, we had diarrhea. So that's another story about Murari Gupta and the dates, okay? But anyway, and the other thing was Brahmastra juice. Everyone knows Brahmastra juice. We made Brahmastra juice, 1 gallon of water and about 40,000 chilies. You just put them in there. And then we thought, tomatoes are healthy, right? So make tomato Brahmastra. I mean, why not, right? Experiment. And it sounded better, tomato Brahmastra. You're getting some vegetable. Yeah. So if you were sick, if you didn't want the shot, you'd have to drink some tomato Brahmastra. And every orifice of your body is just shooting out after that. So that lasted about 6 months, and then I'll do a little palace story. So we started the palace, and as you know, it was just a block building in the very beginning. There was a little drawing, I think in one of the old Vrajakishor spirits, and Bhaktipada or somebody made that first drawing, pencil on paper. And it was just a simple house, because that's what we were going to build for Prabhupada, just a simple house, not a palace in the beginning. So, it has the 6 rooms or whatever it is, 7 rooms, servants' quarters and the kitchen and his study and his bathroom and his bedroom and the temple. And it was just a block building, but everyone was down at Bahulaban. There were some devotees at Madhaban, but that's still around the corner. And there was no wall, it was just blocks. There was a roof, it was plastic and plywood, but it was still leaking. And Bhaktipada thought, or we thought, we should put a guard up there, right? So, Gargavishi, you can be the guard at the palace, okay? And I had just gotten married, so he goes, well, you can move in with your wife. You've done a Bahulaban during the day, go up there at night. I go, Bhaktipada, there's no water. He goes, well, you can haul up water from Madhaban to the palace. So my wife, Mudakari, at that time, she would haul up 5-gallon buckets of water. And so that was our bathing, and and then they said, I said, I should probably have a gun, because, after the bikers attacked in 73, Prabhupada did say, arm yourself. He said, go get guns. If they shoot at you, get guns. You have to defend yourself. And learn how to use them, right? That's a whole nother story. Walking around with guns, and they gave me a World War II German Mauser rifle. Had a wood stock. Most guns have a wood stock. I mean, now they're made of plastic, whatever, but it had wood stock. But the wood went all the way down to the barrel, all the way to the end of the barrel. It weighed about 40 pounds. I could barely lift it. And I was a pretty strong guy. And they said, well, there's a clip here. It's a .308 caliber armor-piercing shells. And you get 3 rounds. Don't shoot it, because that's all we have. We're not going to buy any more, And if you do shoot it, don't shoot it into a car, because it'll go right to the block of the engine. They go, wait a minute, Don't shoot it, it goes through the block of an engine. Only 3 rounds. Okay, great. So, lo and behold, it's raining that night or the night before, and it's about, that high water in our bedroom. And bless her heart, Mudakari never complained. But pickup truck comes pulling up, which they usually, did for a lot of times during that period. 4 or 5 guys, they're all drunk. And they get out, and there's no wall there or anything, just the driveway. And they start screaming. They were trying to check out, see if someone was up there. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? Okay, I got to defend the palace. So I walked out, and I got the gun up in the air, right? And I said, well, if they see me, right, then they might run away. And I thought, wait, it's dark. They can't see me. they're going to just keep coming up. You know, I yelled at them. They didn't do anything. And then I said, okay, I had an idea. I said, look, all right, get the flashlight, shine it on me. Oh, great. Now I'm illuminated with a gun, right? And I go, now I'm really a target. Right? And I said, okay, what you do is flash the light on and off like that, you know, maybe it'll freak them out. So kind of a little, and it did somehow. So, you know, Krishna saved me, or Prabhupada. But that's some of the things that happened in those days. I'll tell you one little more story, okay? All right, real quick. Jaya Krsna. And he came into Vrindavan once. And Jala's, at that time, what I know of Jala, he, you know, very intelligent guy, had studied Hinduism, he knew all the different, you know, things. He studied comparative religions, and he knew a lot about reincarnation and so on. But I would say probably he's more an agnostic than anything. Is that fair to say? Okay. So he was looking around Vrindavan, and he wasn't really, you know, convinced about staying or anything. And he walked into the prasadam room at Bahulaban, and I was sitting there. And he looked at me. I didn't notice him looking at me, but he said he was looking at me. And all of a sudden, as I was sitting there straight back, I pulled out a thread, my Brahmin thread. And he didn't know it was Brahmin thread. I wrapped it around my thumb, and I'm getting ready to chant Gayatri. And I started chanting, and he just thought, wow, where'd this guy go? He just went off into samadhi or something, right? And he was really impressed by that. And later I told him, of course, what happened is we had the art of falling asleep. No. Bhagavatam class, Gayatri, working, you know, giving class, right? Devotees. So, hey, Jala. And Jala, and I have to say one little thing. Jala really did incredible service at the palace with the marble shop. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm torn. Let's see, Bimbadar, you want to say something? Yeah. I'm just praying to Krishna to pick the next person. Oh, there's. Okay. Okay.
In this case, I better apologize and ask for everybody's forgiveness for offenses that I've probably committed. But
Okay, we're losing half of our crew here. We'll just take a little pause. Okay, go ahead.
But I just wanted to bring up the other half of the equation. I mean, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that two people go to get liberated, the monks who develop their spiritual knowledge, and Kshatriyas who just get killed in action, evidently. That's how it goes. So, I mean, I want to bring up the people who haven't been mentioned yet. The most important I can think of is Atmabu. I mean, who did more to build the palace than Atmabu? You know?
Yeah.
Directly with his arms and body, and indirectly with his authority, and running the Brahmachari ashram like it was a Marine training camp, basic training. He really did it. I remember a couple of years I lived up there. Man, that place was 3 o'clock in the morning, cold water, and you got out of there about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning after 4 hours of. I remember the Brahmachari ashram, we used to have to fight and maneuver, jockey yourself for who got to polish the brass. That was the big thing, man. You just couldn't you just couldn't assume you were going to polish the brass if you felt like it. No, maybe you had a little brass to polish one morning, and if it passed all the scrutiny of all the guys up there, all the 20 celibate guys who were, you know, then you might get on the brass crew, you know. But anyway, that's Atmabu. That's how he went. That's why the palace is there, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it was great. So.
Since we only have an hour and 15 minutes left, max, so we're going to have to just streamline a little bit, but I want to make sure I try. Huh? Yeah, I just want to make sure we try to get everybody in. So palace stories, Mahabhuti Prabhu, what do you want to tell us? Palace story? Palace manager, and then your next Pushkar. And then Raghunath, and Daivir, and Gaur Shakti, and Soma, Kalpaviksha, Maharaj, Jad Bharat. We've got a lot of people to get in here, so.
Are you sure you want to speak? I can't speak under an hour usually.
Yeah, well, we get 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, everyone. Om Agnyatmarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Offer my respectful obeisance on the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and to all our Gaudiya Guru Varga that's come in a line from Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So I was the first import. When I came to New Vrindavan, the rest of ISKCON kind of considered the only people that come to New Vrindavan was the ones that couldn't cook, do Sankirtan, or something. They would send them to New Vrindavan because they thought everyone in New Vrindavan was a little bit off. So, so that was so when they said Mahabhuti after doing years in the library party and being Prabhupada's guard and running all of Prabhupada's darshans for 5 years in Vrindavan and Mayapur, and they said, "Where are you going?" After New York, said, "I'm going to New Vrindavan." They all looked at me like, "Are you okay?" Seriously, So we had visited here. My first visit to New Vrindavan as a brahmachari, I was here with Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who was in Ganesham, and we were part of the BBT library party, and Krishna Prabhu. And so we were at Bahulaban, and this was our first visit to New Vrindavan. And devotees, we were there getting ready for Mangalartik, and it must have been about 40 degrees out, and the devotees were taking bath in these little spigots coming out of the side of the wall with water, which was like freezing on its way down, and all the brahmacharis in there chanting Hare Krishna, and we're going outside like this, and and then remember taking a bath, I couldn't even feel my body, and I go, these guys are nuts. But anyway, we realized that there was a lot of austerities that were going on, so that didn't attract me very much. But Bhakti Tirtha was attracted to austerities. I was more like, I'll pass on that one. So let's move it back to 1980. Actually, the first palace was given to Narada Muni to try to do some marketing and stuff, and he unfortunately got sick. So I came from New York, and when I got here, I think I was such an outsider. I might have been the first guy outside of maybe Dulal Chand or something that was given a house that had a car, because everyone looked at me. They were taking these trucks, coming up and down like buses, and everyone, what's he doing with a car? So I sort of like broke the mold a little bit from coming here. It certainly felt like that, being from outside, but we saw what a great opportunity of the palace was. There was probably about 300 visitors a year at that time. So over the course, we had a lot of conversations with Kirtananda, and by his good graces, he was allowed, we did some things that normally other temples didn't do, but they didn't have a palace. So we printed brochures by the thousands, and we decided to distribute them up and down all the highways coming from into New Vrindavan. Then we decided that we were going to market to a lot of the newspapers. We took pictures, beautiful garlands in the temple because it was such photographic. And I remember sending them. We had Puru, who was my assistant at that time, who's now since into the spiritual world. We'd be sending photos and pictures out to the different newspapers. So at one point in time, by the end of about 2 years there, we had 120 photo journals, of which put in all the major newspapers all across the country, and we started picking up visitors. And so when the weekends started getting busy, then gradually when we started seeing buses start come, I joined the American Bus Association and the National Tour Association, and we started to make arrangements with Wheeling Downs and Wheeling Jamboree and the Holiday Inn, and we started booking tours. So first year we had maybe 20 buses. The next year we had over 100. So by the time of 4 years into it, we already had over 800 buses that would come a year, each with 40 or so people with it. We would sell 42 people out. We would charge in the palace, which was another thing. Before everyone was just giving free tours. We had a donation of, I think, $7. Was that what it was? We had about $7 of donations, and that toured the tour. Then, of course, by that time, the gift shop started getting ready, and then we had a restaurant. And then by the time all the tour buses would come in with all the people, they would drop about $50 a person. So at that point in time, we started to make a lot of money, or at least enough money, not compared to our Sankirtan team, but at least to going in. So then what we started to do, we went to the government, the local government, because we were getting harassed. Some of you may remember by the tax person and some of the county commissioners. So I arranged buses to go to the city hall on voting time, and we bought, I think, about 6 or 8 buses. We ended up everyone who was over 18 got in a bus and went down to downtown Moundsville and placed a vote, and we voted out all the people that were against New Vrindavan community. So that was a major victory. I remember Sheriff Leitner, and he would come out and hassle, and then some of the other peoples with that. So at that time, things were going on, and we had a lot of buses. When we went to the state government, we met with Governor Rockefeller and the 2 Senators Byrd, and I forgot the other one, I think maybe still around. We invited them to come out. Then we arranged to get what's called New Vrindavan Community. You see some of the signs that are out here. We had the state recognize it as New Vrindavan Community, and that started here. Then at that point, they would come out and visit. And then as the visit, we have to really understand at this time, most of the concentration had been on building the palace. Hardly anyone knew anything about marketing the palace or bringing in here. So now we also had over 125 major television shows, the Today Show, Bill Curtis, all those guys would all come out, interviews on national television that made, major hit spots in the NBC, CBS, ABC. And so it started bringing more and more and more people. No, not Dan Rather. But he didn't have any morning shows. He was an evening guy. So what happened at the end of that, we bumped up from a meager 300 people visiting up until 1984. We had over 3 million people here, and we were designated as the 3rd largest tourist attraction in the state of West Virginia. So at the end of that, we had hundreds of buses. We've had dozens and dozens of television shows, and we had a lot. This became a community pilgrimage place for all the Indians families in the United States. It became recognized like that. We know at that point in time there was a lot of crafts going on, so different things people can stop, and this was really being looked at as what Prabhupada wanted it, as a pilgrimage place, and that was the discussion that was going on. Sometimes there would be a battle between Sankirtan and the palace. So I want to recognize we have some people here that were really excellent. I mean, one of the things that we did well is we treated people well that came to the palace. And we have some of our founding tour guides who would give tours across to the palace, and everyone became so amazed, and the word of mouth became so much that we got so many different buses, so many different people from local to many, many states away that would come primarily because of not only the palace itself, its beauty for all that they've done, but also the warm welcomes they got from all the tour guides. So we have here Mother Lajavati. We have Jala Kolahari. We have Rasa Vihari. We have, I don't know if Sankirtan's here, but Sankirtan also. Who am I missing out here? We had Krishna Katha that was also happening. We've had a lot of people. Huh? Shripad. Okay, Hare Krishna. So what happens is that, as I remember, my wife was, struggling with my son, carrying her on on one of those little backpacks or front packs, whatever, going on tours, and every corner there were different communications going on, talking about Prabhupada, and everyone had a Back to Godhead magazine with a palace on it. So we distributed thousands upon thousands of Back to Godheads. That, every person that came in had at least a book, plus many of them bought other books. And we talked prasad. I know Mother Janeshwari was cooking such wonderful prasad in between her and Kaladri, Radnath, and Rasabihari. Everyone was, wanted to come in and take the Maha plate from the palace. And so there was a lot of prasadam distributed also. But, I think the thing is, what I said earlier yesterday, that there's no reason you can't do the same thing as that we had then. And it requires that a little bit of know-how and a commitment by the management team to want to glorify Prabhupada. If New Vrindavan, and this is Randy, this is my buddies. I'm taking the time since I have the mic. No one's kicking me out yet. If New Vrindavan wants to be successful, I don't listen over here. If New Vrindavan wants to be successful, never did, but anyway, I should have stopped now. If New Vrindavan wants to be successful, the real key is just to please the spiritual master. As we know, yasya prasada bhagavat prasada, yasya prasada nagatika topi. Without pleasing the spiritual master, there's not going to be, we can talk about the past, but we want to talk about the future. What's your future? Your future is by glorifying Prabhupada. He will send people, he will send money, he will send creative ideas, many of them are already in the community. And what will happen by putting him first, this place will grow. Without doing that, and as generations go on with different disciples of different gurus and different in your line, that you have to keep the memory of Prabhupada alive, not just glorifying those of us who participated either in building or marketing the palace, but in remembering Prabhupada and giving them to everyone else. Because that's what this is about. By glorifying Guru, then this place will grow. It'll grow beyond your imagination, ours. Why? Because Prabhupada wanted it to grow. So either we can become, and I say we, that I'm not really part of you in the sense of I'm not here, but I'm here now. But the difference is that by wanting to put Prabhupada, glorify Prabhupada, putting the Guru in front, giving him to everyone else that you can, what will happen? That by this place will grow, it'll expand. Radharani will shed her mercy, because the mercy of Guru will spread to all the devotees who want to take glory in glorifying our Guru Varga. Hare Krishna.
So we got 1 hour and 4 minutes. And the thing is, we also have tomorrow morning. We have 3 hours tomorrow morning also. So I want to let you know, like, whoever doesn't get to speak, can speak again tomorrow morning. I just want to let you guys know that we're not going to cut it short, but I want to try to get, and what you can do is you can come up and give a 5-minute story, and then you can give another story tomorrow. There's no, there's not going to be rules tomorrow. So if we can get some quick 5-minute stories, Mananath, you want to give a quick 5-minute story, and then Pushkar, give a quick 5-minute story. Soma, yeah, just give some 5-minute. We're trying to pack in as much as we can today, because we don't know if we're going to see you guys again.
Hare Krishna. I can identify with Ganendra when he says that, he's always going to be remembered as Ambarish's brother. So whenever I'm here, yeah, and I come back, you know, Tejo and I came together, but yeah, he came with Tejo. So what should I talk about? Something that came up, and it came up around Ambarish when you were talking, and Andrew, was I think it was early '75. By then I had stopped working in the gardens and was being trained to work on the horses. And I was no longer living up in the Brahmachari ashram, but down in Bahulaban. And Bhaktipada took mercy on me. They were going to see Prabhupada in New York. And only the big guns were going, you know, Sudhanu and Taru and Radhanath and, you know, Kaladri, Gagarish probably went, all these big, and here, you know, I was just a little kid, young man at that time, and he took mercy on me, and he let me come. And we all went in this van. There's like 12 of us in there. Adwaita was in there as well, and I remember he was supposed to do some Sankirtan. He had all these sweetmeats with him. I forget. Chandramali had made them up for him, about 300 of them. I think he ate half of them on the way there. But it was a wonderful trip, and I was in awe, you know, just of, you know, we're chanting. I think Radhanath Swami's chanted the whole way in the van, and when we got to the temple was still on Henry Street, and we get there, you know, and a lot of it was the barn crew, and then we had some of the horse crew. So you can imagine how we smelled, you know, we just reeked of cow dung and horse manure, and we bust out of the van. And we get to Henry Street, and so we get there. We got there in the middle of the morning before Mangalartik, and we get set for Mangalartik, and we all get, you know, curtains open. Everyone's really quiet. We're all paying our obeisances, and then boom! Ambarish jumps up the air. He goes into the loudest, you know, leading of kirtan. I mean, here we are at Henry Street. We're in their house, in their home. And we come in stinking of you know what, and he just like, he blew the doors. Everyone in Henry Street Temple just like looked at us. And then after a while, when you know kirtan really heated up, the dung really heated up, and everything really stunk. It was like, it was, and then the real nectar came after that. After that, Prabhupada, I got to go to Prospect Park with Prabhupada and all these, you know, really older devotees, you know, and I just remember walking with Prabhupada, and he was just like floating in Prospect Park, and he just, you know, I couldn't hear some of the stuff, but I remember he goes up to the ice, and he taps on the ice. He says, "You hear that?" Anything that he said, it was just like intense. I don't know, it was just, just the simple him talking about ice, you know, just was, it was just something about it that made it so special. That was really special. I don't have it. You know, there's a lot of other stuff.
You want to do a 5-minute story, and then we'll do Vishnu stuff tomorrow? You want to do a 5-minute story? 5 or 10 minutes? There's a good Vishnu story. We'll tell his story tomorrow. I know. That's what I'm saying. So it's better to tell the story.
Howdy, Bo. So as a loose end to catch up on glorifying Ambarish, so I will say I just tweaked my mind that Chaitanya Shastri was also mentioned. Chaitanya Shastri was super avadut. And one day I saw him, he was walking into the, I don't know, temple here in Bahulaba or down there. And he was like, you know how he was? Like, yeah, he was like weird. He said, "This is so nice." He said, "Ambarish cleans me up every day." And that's how devotees should be, you know. And I thought, wow, that's far out that Ambarish does it. But I thought, wow, this guy needs to be cleaned up. He was appreciating Ambarish that he would practically bathe the guy, you know. So he was doing like that. And we forgot Udamoj, right? Because you talked about the smell. Anyway, reminded me of Udamoj coming with a bucket of prasadam and like, oh my God. The prasadam aisle. So anyway, I'm supposed to talk about art, right? There's nothing to say. That's why we paint, because we have nothing to say. Really, Muralidhar wrote to me. Somehow I was in Germany. We didn't have internet. I have no clue how. I'm sitting in Frankfurt at the Schloss. I remember Muralidhar was writing to me somehow. I don't think he called me. There was no cell phones or anything. Somehow or other, I came here. John Bhavan picked me up in Pittsburgh Airport, and he seemed normal. I guess he was. So some of the funny things, she wants funny, huh? The funny and tragic are like, right on. So I got, also, we painted over the hill, the whole one over the hill. And, but we painted there. It was me and Muralidhar. And then gradually we had Dhruva Maharaj. Who remembers? Nobody. Yeah, Dhruva. I talked to him on the phone. Yeah, he's not coming, don't worry. But yeah, he's nice, he's friendly. And we had Ramanath came. In the palace, there's a picture of Rupa and Sanatan, they're writing. Yeah, so I did the drawing, and I was getting ready to do the painting, and he showed up. So Muralidhar said, well, let him do the painting. Okay, do the painting. And I kept doing my guru paintings, and I ended up doing so many paintings and here and there, like that. That used to be in the palace, this painting, in the beginning. Anybody remember? No. In 83, when they opened the temple, they took it out and then they put Muralidhar's painting. Probably better. It's a different style, but I don't think we should have Prabhupada looking down either, but he's here, he's looking down. He's independent. And a loose thread about Mahabodhi. So this has nothing to do with art, but when did you come? In 80? Yeah. So the palace already had the first opening. So when Mahabodhi came, raise your hand if anyone, I'm not going to say that. Nobody knew him. Like he said, nobody knew Mahabodhi at all. I knew him because they used to always come to me like, Pushka, who's this guy? Who's that guy? I mean, practically only Kaladri was the only person, I think, who knew anyone who existed outside of New Vrindavan in those days. It seemed like it anyway. It seemed like, especially if they had been, whatever. So somebody asked, who's that? Kaladri said, who's this? He might have known him. But they gave him a hard time. No, right? They didn't want to do it. I told Kirtananda, I told Kaladri, I said, Mahabodhi's a great manager. And when I first came here, I thought, who's going to come to the palace? Nobody's come to this place. Oh, it looks great. Oh, whatever. Yeah, just keep it up there on the hill. So when Mahabodhi came, it was like cold, right? And his wife hated the cold. I remember he told me. And I brought him up the Maha plate, and nobody was paying attention to him, and then he left. And then how many months later he actually came back? I was like, oh my God, this guy came back. I couldn't believe it. No one gave him the time of day. I just brought him a few Maha plates. Came back, and all your stuff was stolen in New York, right? All your clothes out of the car, all his wife's clothes on the way here, and I was telling. That's why we had to come here. Get loose. So I told Kirtan, I told Kaladri, I said, you don't give this guy a hard time. He's good, he's going to get people to come here. They were like, you'd think they'd be whatever, but he actually pushed on, himself. They didn't encourage him the first few, I don't know how many months, was it? Yeah, but he was very determined, and I think he gets a lot of credit for the palace. And what he just said, people should watch that video or something, because we need to get this place back together. I mean, now it costs like so much more. Who was telling me yesterday how it costs so much more, Advaita, to do the same things that were done 40 years ago. Now it costs, 5 times more if you want to replace it. So it's a big effort. That's why Mahabodhi moves back here.
You got to pay all your workers too.
We need Mahabodhi moving back here. Forget the hospital stuff. Managing hospital, they'll go on. We need you back in New Vrindavan.
We just have to build a hospital.
Build a hospital here, yeah.
Okay.
There's a hospital somewhere.
Do you have a story about maybe the ladies painting on their backs, or Vishnu putting up remember when Vishnu put up were you there when he was putting up the thing in it? They were trying to glue it?
Don't remember.
You don't remember that one? Okay, I'll get that one tomorrow. Okay, you got 2 minutes.
So some of the anecdotes are, so anyway, we lived in that cabin, Bahulaban, over the hill. And then we moved to the back of the prasadam room. We had a little makeshift art studio there. And then we got the studio, which became the palace had already opened, but we were working for it. Who remembers Mata Mangal, right? He moved in there, couldn't get rid of him. And Muralidhar was like, oh, he was like very kind of tolerant, staunch guy. But then Mata Mangal started telling everybody he had trained up Muralidhar. And that was it. Couldn't take that. You get rid of it. This guy's too weird, you know. I mean, Muralidhar wasn't particularly that puffed up, but he just couldn't take that. And but he was always the very staunch guy. Sukava tried to got in touch with him.
I did.
He actually responded.
Thanked me for the invitation.
Yeah.
So he knew that we invited him, but he's not. And he does have on his website.
Your mic's off.
He does have on his website that the 18 years that he spent at the monastery really helped him to meditate.
He
and
never
develop.
says anything about Krishna, but
he did say
when you see the
monastery.
picture, he has Mother Yasoda running on his website. A lot of other pictures, mundane.
Yeah.
But he has his stuff that he did at the Wheeling, Civic Center.
Yeah.
He has Mother Yasoda running to Krishna, another one. The two, actually, I think he might have the Gopi thing, but he didn't do that in New Vrindavan. But Muralidhar was a pretty heavy-duty, intense, not like Bhagavatananda, but, you know, when he did the big Mother Yasoda running, which was in the palace restaurant, and then it started leaking. Kirtananda had it rolled up for years. I once got in touch with Kumar. One guy wanted to buy it, and then somehow it ended up going to Moffat-Lal. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Moffat-Lal has it in his house. Rishikesh Moffat-Lal. I saw it. I went there.
Okay.
That 9 by 12 foot. And Muralidhar is like, he would not spare any pain to do his stuff. A lazy guy from New York, but he would just go to Pittsburgh if he found there's some girl looked exactly right, and he'd get the pictures from every angle, and, you know, very intense person.
10 seconds.
10 seconds down. So anyway, we had Vishnu Das. We got 2 pages of him and his memories about what he did.
We'll tell some more stories, painting stories tomorrow.
But there's not so many anecdotes about art. I mean, I could talk about the first week, how tried to make stretcher bars, went into the shop, Kripacharya was there.
Kripacharya.
And I don't think I'd ever seen him before, and it was like shocking when you saw him. Kripacharya was in there, Prachetas, John Alada. And they were teasing John Alada about his cookies. All his cookies had been stolen the day before. You know, he'd collect the cookie throw. Everybody remember that thing?
Yeah.
Very agitated about it. So I didn't know any of those guys. And I said, Prabhu, yeah, you shouldn't be attached to your cookies, you know. And they were already jiving him really heavy. So it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And he slapped me in the face with a big brush full of polyurethane. In my mouth. Yeah, I was washing my mouth for the rest of the day, you know. So, well, that's my greeting to New Vrindavan.
There you go. That's a good story. That's a good one to end with. Thank you. We have a second gen here. Shamakunda, Shamantaka, Shamakunda's child. He has 2 little stories to tell. Tell the little story first, and then tell the funniest story.
Oh, well, I was going to tell the bull story.
Okay, tell the bull story.
All right. Some of you might not know this, but me and my father and mother, they had taken us up. It was in Old Vrindavan, and I think his name was John at the time from New York. I think it was John Japani. And they were in the house talking. They told us to go out and play. And so me and my sister Sarah, I was before I was in the ashram, so I had to be under 4 or so. And we're walking up along the fence, and, you know, throwing sticks, doing whatever. And you know, I throw a stick and a cow runs away, runs down the hill. And then, I'm like, so I got a reaction. So I went boo, and more of them took off down the hill, and all of them ran down the hill. And this one cow just would not run. It was just standing there. And no matter how much I jumped or threw sticks. It just stood there. So I ducked under the fence and I started running at it. Ah! And yeah, I didn't know it was a bull at the time, but it started running back at me. So I was like, okay. So I started jetting for the gate, and right as I was going to crawl under it, I just started seeing sky ground, sky ground, sky ground, and I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't hear the gunshot. But I just know that it stopped, and I was laying there looking up at the sky, and I wasn't crying or in pain. I just wiped my head, and I had some blood, so that made me a little starting to cry. But anyway, it turned out that was a bull, and John ended up having to leave because I understand I'm not that important. Yes. No. But yeah, and so yeah, he saved my life, but he had to trade it for the bull at the time. So, and then on a lighter note, I'll tell a story about my father. And so I didn't get much time with my father because he was pretty busy working here. And this was also before I was in ashram. And I remember he was taking.
And there were 9 kids in your family.
Yeah, so
right.
This is probably the one time I was alone with him. No. But we're driving into town, and I know it's wrong, but I want a piece of candy and there's these Luden's cough drops that, even though they were cough drops, they tasted like candy. So it was like I could ask for candy, or I could ask for cough drops because my throat was sore, but it was okay to give them to me. And my father's like, just ask Krishna, Krishna will provide. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to start asking Krishna, and he's going to pull over and get me some or something. So I start thinking in my head, Krishna, I just want a cough drop. I want one of those Ludens. And we pull up to the stoplight, and as he's braking, a box of Ludens slides out from under the seat. I pick it up. All it's got is that white wrapper inside. I'm like, oh, it's empty. I open it up, and there's 1 Ludens in the bottom of that. And that's why I believe in Krishna. I couldn't get over it.
Thank you for coming. Just see how Krishna appears in so many ways. All right, let's see. I got to make sure I get people who aren't going to be here tomorrow. Anybody who's particularly not going to be here tomorrow that I'm not seeing? Soma, you want to tell a little story, Kalpavriksha, after that? Maybe. Are you leaving, Kumar? Kumar's leaving, everybody. Let's. Kumar, now's the time. Soma, you want to give Kumar a hug? Are you going to give Kumar a hug too, Kalpa, or are you going to come to talk? Okay. Okay, Soma.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
I don't know where to start. I got so many memories. I was in early, at the palace in 73, started working on it. But I didn't just start working at the palace. There was always like some other things to do while we were working on the palace. And I just want to do like an acknowledgement that I really like being here. It's really wonderful to hear all these stories from everyone. It really touches my heart. And Eka Chakra, he gave a little talk before. He really helped me a lot, in the wood shop. And I'm really grateful for that. Jimmy Devine was helping over at the new barn. for somehow or other, it seemed I would be always working alone, because there was like the people working with the cows, there'd be cooking, there'd be, doing the deity worship. But for construction, in the early days, I was the only one. So I always would end up being alone, and then when somebody else would come, Kirtanananda would have him work with me. But the first time I came to New Vrindavan in 1972, I came a little bit early. That was when Srila Prabhupada was going to be here. And when I came up, I came specifically, to help with the construction, to get things ready for Srila Prabhupada. So the first thing that Kirtanananda had me do was go into the temple room, because they were just making a new temple room in the back. And Shamakunda was working on the altar, and Bhagavatananda was on the marble floor. And he asked me if I knew how to sand floors, and it just so happened in Boston, I had done miles of refinishing the floors with these sanders that they look like a lawnmower, and they have a big drum on the end of it. So Bhagavatananda, had me help him, but he just had me hold the cord, and he would be, walking up with a sander, and I was just holding the cord. And I was thinking, because I had done it so much before, you don't need anybody to help hold the cord. But he had me do that, and yeah. And then Kirtananda came in, and they were down on their knees looking at the marble, seeing how the sanding was going. But, it was just with the rough grit. And they were just kind of wondering about it. And I said, well, it's just the rough grit. When you go over it with the medium and the fine, it'll come out good. And Bhagavatananda looked up at me, and he said, your problem is you have no knowledge, And I was, just there for a few hours, in New Vrindavan. But it worked out good, because Kirtananda said, well, maybe these two aren't going to work out so well. So he took me aside, and they had a little, the new Vyas Puja book in 72 had a picture of Srila Prabhupada being carried in Varshana on a palanquin. So he said, can you make a palanquin so we can carry Srila Prabhupada up the hill for the Bhagavatamrita discourses? So I said, I don't know, I'll try. Do you have any wood? And he said, well, go look behind this shed over here. So I went over there to look, and there was some broken bottles and some rotten fence boards, and I picked one up, it fell apart. So I was thinking, how am I going to do this? And, but I looked over at the barn, and they had just got a shipment of, like, back to Godheads or something. There was a pallet. So I said, okay, we can make a palanquin out of a pallet. And, put the pallet down. It was about the right size. And from the tool room, I got an axe, and I had to go out in the woods and got 3 poles and some rope. And we had this palanquin that was hanging by ropes. There's some pictures of it that are still there, carrying Srila Prabhupada up the hill on this palanquin. It wasn't very nice. I mean, all the Matajis decorated it with and they showed him the palanquin, and he just went over and sat on the palanquin. And with 6 people, we carried him all the way up the hill to give his first lecture, the Bhagavatamrita discourses. And there was big kirtans with people. And Prabhupada was just so merciful that he accepted that. And he was the road was uneven. He was kind of swinging back and forth because it was hanging by ropes. And he was like holding on to the rope. Yeah, I was one of the persons carrying Srila Prabhupada. Mahamuni was one. I don't remember the other people's name. But carried him all the way up the top of the hill. He got off. Radha Damodar was there. Jagannath was there. And a big picture of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada paid his obeisances. He sat down on the Vyasa-san, and he led kirtan. He gave a really wonderful talk. And I was kind of sitting right up by the stage because I wanted to carry him back down. And sure enough, he gave his talk. He might have answered a few questions. And then without saying anything, he just got up, went over and sat down on the palanquin again. But this time he was facing the other direction. But it didn't really have a front or a back. And we just picked him up. And by this time, though, it was pitch black. And, yeah, some people, not much. You couldn't see anything, and the road was really uneven. It was probably like a half a mile going down the hill to in front of the barn again. And, we got to carry Srila Prabhupada down the hill. And that was the only time he used it. After that, Hari Griva would drive him up in this little yellow Volkswagen. But he accepted that service of, being carried up on the palanquin. And just a little bit about the palace. When I first started working there were just some cement blocks. I don't even think any of the walls were finished all the way. And learning how to lay blocks. I remember we learned the first day we did like 4 blocks, and we thought we were doing good, but we had to get them perfect. And then we did 8, and then 13. But after a few years, we were doing like 300 or 400 in a day. But just to start, it was really difficult, and there was no water. So just to mix the cement, there was like one puddle in the courtyard where the kirtan room is now. And we used to have to scoop the water out of the puddle to mix the cement. And if it was dry, it would dry up, then we had a wheelbarrow with a pickle barrel. We had to go to Madhaban, and get the water out of the well with a bucket, fill up this pickle barrel, and wheelbarrow it all the way back, just so that we could mix the cement. And that was how it was when Srila Prabhupada came to visit in 1974. It was just a mud floor, some cement blocks. There was no roof anywhere. It was, like a real construction site. So, Srila Prabhupada was coming, this is 1974. He was staying at the Gray House, and me and Ghost Bihari were the 2 people that were working at the palace at that time. And so we made sure we got over there early because we knew that Srila Prabhupada was going to come up and take a tour of the palace. And I can remember, where the entranceway is now, that was going to be a carport for Srila Prabhupada to pull his car up in. So at that time, you could still drive up there with a car. And it was he came with a white car. I think it was Veda Mata's car, with a little white kind of Cadillac. Oh, Veda Priya, yeah, that's right. And, Kirtanananda was driving him, and Srila Prabhupada got out, and he had just such a big smile. It was amazing. Prabhupada, when he smiled, it was just like lighting up the whole world. And Kirtanananda was kind of like really humbly showing him, oh, this is going to be the servants' quarters. This is where your deities will go, and this is where you can translate, and while you're translating, you can look at your deities. And Prabhupada was just smiling, and he was, poking the walls with his cane. And we had these little door jams, wooden door jams, but they weren't very well. Later, we took them out, and they were a little loose, and Prabhupada was like poking them with his cane, poking them twice. They weren't so good. And all through this time, he hadn't said anything. And, he showed him like where his bedroom was going to be. It was just because there was hardly anything there. It didn't take very long. And on the way out, he looked over, and we had a pallet with cement bags on it. And because there was no roof, we just covered it with plastic. And Srila Prabhupada said, "What is this?" And Kirtanand tried to explain, "Well, that's the cement, Srila Prabhupada." He said, "This is not good." And we were thinking, and what else can you do? There's no roof. You just got to cover it with plastic. But Srila Prabhupada was so perceptive on everything, just like he was tapping the walls. And Varshana Maharaj said before, he wanted windows for natural light. And when he said this is not good, we didn't know really what he was talking about. But it was like, a week later after he had left, and we actually, when we needed some cement, we took the plastic off. And it had rained, and some of the water had gotten in, and some of the cement was ruined, and Srila Prabhupada had noticed that, just in his walk around. And anyways, there was only, me and Ghost Bihari, the Bali Mardan was there. He had just recently got married. This is 1974, maybe Brahmananda. I think Ladini had run over from Madhaban. She was there. And just on the way out, because it was so plain, construction site, And, this is my take on it, that, Bali Mardan said, oh, this is called Prabhupada, this is, they're saying this is your palace. And, in Krishna's palaces, they used to be illuminated with the jewels on the wall. And then Prabhupada just stopped and he took his cane and he waved it at the devotees and he said, these devotees are my jewels. And it was just like such a spontaneous, thing. Prabhupada, like Varshana Maharaj, is kind of like a glimpse into his vision, how he was seeing devotees. And, we should also see the devotees as, the real jewels and appreciate them like that. Srila Prabhupada did. So anyways, Prabhupada, he got out, he got into his car, Kirtananda went around he was going to drive him. And me and Gosavi Hari were just standing there, staring at Srila Prabhupada. He had the window rolled down. We were just, staring at him. And he looked up at us and he said, so you're working here? And I couldn't believe that he was actually talking to us. So I turned around, see, maybe it was somebody else he was talking to, but it was just us. And, Gosavi Hari said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And he said, oh, thank you very much. And then Gosa said, oh, no, thank you, Srila Prabhupada. And then he turned to Kirtanananda and he said, so are you going to install Radha Vrindavan Chandra here? And there's a whole story about this because there was a little controversy in ISKCON that, never in our line have they ever built like a palace for a spiritual master, though the Goswamis built palaces, for the Krishna, for the deities, the temples. So anyways, Prabhupada was joking with Kirtanananda. He said, so you're going to install Radha Vrindavan Chandra here? And Kirtanananda said, no, Srila Prabhupada, we're going to install you here. And he said, oh, that is proper. So thank you very much.
More stories tomorrow from Soma. You want to say a few stories about excavating, just a little bit, something about what the place was like before we started excavating? I have some stories from devotees that came up. And Kirtanananda said, here's the place we're going to build Prabhupada's palace. And it was just a dump. So, thank you. Thank you.
It was a dump in the middle of the forest. And there was no indication that there was any merit to that site until we started clearing the trees. And I would like to follow the example that Bimbadar Prabhu set in acknowledging some of the devotees who have not been mentioned for their services. Because as we hear the services that others have offered, it softens our hearts and it rejuvenates that spirit of brotherhood and camaraderie that we experienced during the construction of the palace. I don't know if anybody even in this room even knows who the first crew was on site. No, it was Shaibya and Megapushpa, because Tom and John were still in training. Those are horses, for those of you who don't know. So the horses began the clearing and the initial stages of excavation with the horse-drawn excavator. But then when it got serious, we had to hire a local, Bob Black, with his dozer and backhoe. And then Kirtananda Maharaj noticed that the horses and the machines were working very well together. And he asked me, do you have any experience in heavy equipment? And I said, well, a little, but I don't really want to go there. So when it came time to begin hauling marble, when a marble yard was being sold out in Pittsburgh, and we had to haul huge loads of marble, and all we had was an old farm truck. So he asked Paramananda if he could borrow me to drive a truck. He said, anybody could drive a truck. No, what are those tractor trailer?
You know, the ones that bend in the middle, because nobody else has experience. So Paramananda donated me for the day, and we began looking for a truck that we could afford because we didn't have money. We would just exchange services. And one of the neighbors had an old antique tractor trailer out in his pasture. So they sent me to go look at it. And it resembled a Model A Ford, but it didn't have a hood, and it didn't have lights, and it didn't have a muffler. And most of the wooden bed on the trailer was all rotted through. And the tires, you could see the cord through the tires. I said, well, this will work fine as long as we don't meet any police. So Caitanya Maharaj said, don't worry, Krishna will protect you. So I drafted, because I'd never been into a city before, so I asked Samba to come and help be the navigator. And Radhakanta is a good mechanic, so you have to come along because we're going to have to be hooking up lights while they're loading the marble, because we'll start out at the crack of dawn and we'll surely be back at night, so we'll be hooking up lights while they're loading, which we did. When we're driving this thing down the road, everybody we passed turned and looked in amazement. They couldn't believe that something like this would be on the highway. And the wheels were all wobbling. And we didn't meet any police. We made it there. And while they're loading the marble, we were down underneath running wire from the battery all the way back to the end of the trailer while we were fabricating taillights. And then we go up to the front and fabricate headlights. And we got all the lights working just in time to leave. But I couldn't hear Samba well, there wasn't a passenger seat, but I couldn't hear him over where a passenger seat would be because the engine was so loud. So he was standing on the running boards, shaved up with his dhoti and tilak, standing on the running boards while we're driving through Pittsburgh, pointing the direction for me to go. And miraculously, we made it back as far as Elm Grove. And by this time, it's dark. And we're wiring together the different lights, and they're all coming on. And then we had to come up that hill in Elm Grove with a heavy load of marble. And this truck was so loud when it was coming up the hill. You could see lights going on in houses all across the landscape. And then we got to the top of the hill, and then there was the red flashing lights. They caught us. And the cop got out and he looked at that thing. He said, how can this be? So then he said, we're taking that truck to the jail, and all of you too. So he said, turn it around here. And it was just a little driveway on the side of Route 88. And this is a tractor trailer. Now, when you turn a tractor trailer to the jackknife, past the jackknife position, which is it's a 90-degree angle. But sometimes in a real tight bind, you have to turn it even further so that when the tractor's backing up, the trailer and the tractor's backing up and the trailer's going forward. And a really good driver can navigate these things through difficult. But the problem is, when it jackknifed, as we turned around in that man's driveway, it broke all the wires. So then the cop said, just stop there. I'm impounding this thing on the spot. And he took out his list and started writing out citations. I told Radhakanta, get down underneath and start putting the wires back together again. So the cop wrote, no running lights. Radhakanta, hook up the running lights. I said, look, they're working.
And he looked. He couldn't believe it. Well, you have no brake lights. Radhakanta, brake lights. So why? Look, the brake lights are working. Well, you have no headlights. Radhakanta, headlights. And the headlights came on. And then the blinkers came. And the cop said, get away from that truck. So he put us all in the cop car and locked us up in jail in the middle of the night. And they had a wrecker come and tow the truck to the jail, and they impounded it. Yes, with the marble. It was all impounded. So then they say, you get one phone call. And he couldn't reach anybody in New Vrindavan, so he called Bob Black, the man with the dozer and backhoe who was working with me at the palace. And first of all, you know Bob Black? Yeah, we know him. So he called him, and he told the cops, let them go. So they asked, you know Bob Black? Yeah. He's releasing you. So we were released, but the marble's still impounded. And it looked like it'd be a very lengthy process to get it back. So we're trying to figure out how to get the marble. And then those same rednecks who had that tractor trailer out in their pasture, they were like part of a clan. And they all took their shotguns and pickup trucks and went to the police department. And there was a major confrontation. They had the cops surrounded by these rednecks. And it was a very tense situation. So then Bob Black calls us and says, now's your window of opportunity. You can get the marble now while these guys are fighting it out. So we got every truck and every horse wagon and everything we could, and we went into the police department again, the same crew that they had locked up the night before. And we transferred the marble to our farm trucks and horse-drawn wagons, 1896 grain wagon, and somehow or other got all the marble back before they even realized it was gone. So, different people ask, how could, this group have built Srila Prabhupada's Palace of Gold? And one theory is Yankee ingenuity. But that also necessitated that Krishna protected us. And that was Srila Prabhupada's final blessing, as Somadas so lovingly recounts. His last address, Srila Prabhupada's last address to the palace crew was, simply keep working like this and Krishna will protect you.
Thank you. Does anybody know a story about Rishi Kumar? Anybody here know a story about Rishi Kumar? Well, he said he would talk tomorrow. He's going to be here. Raghunath, do you want to say a little story? You don't want to say a little story?
I'll tell one story.
One story, okay.
I'll tell you, it's not really about the palace.
Okay.
So in the early days, New Vrindavan had sort of a duo of people there was Bhokta, who would do daily or weekly town runs to pick up boga and building supplies and construction, pretty much anything you needed, Bhokta was the one who would buy it. Sukavaha was the gatekeeper for all those things that he bought. She was a supply sergeant, kind of. It was amazing because she was such a small lady, but she was such a powerful presence. And she would take on the biggest guys in the farm without even batting an eyelash. So I have this one distinct memory of one day I needed some gloves. So they had a semi-tractor trailer, just a trailer parked in the Bahulavan parking lot below the old pits, sort of below the temple room. And it was parked there permanently. And she would sit in the back of that almost like an Indian shopkeeper, and you had to go and negotiate with her if you needed something. So she was almost like something out of Loy Bazaar, but she had flour and gloves and boots and you name it. She had all that stuff. And so I really just needed some gloves, right? I didn't think that was a big request, but they had, so I went to Sukava. I said, Sukava, I really, really need some gloves. You know, I'm working out building fences. I work with barbed wire, all this kind of stuff. And so they had just received a barrel of gloves that apparently were used by people in a bakery. So they're all like used cloth gloves. They would use them once, they get dirty, and they throw them in this barrel. So somehow or other, we had come across this huge barrel of used bakery gloves. She said, tell you what, I'll give you a pair of these. So she took them and she put them on her hands and then slapped them together in my face, just like that. Made this huge puff of flour. She said, how do you like that? Is that good enough for you? Took them off and gave them to me. That's all.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Jeb Brett, you said you were going to tell 2 little stories, please. We're getting close to the end of the line here. And then tomorrow morning, 10:30, back here, we have one more long session, and then we have some other things. Oh, and I'll go ahead. I'll give the announcement.
So I'll tell a story about David Otto, okay? David Otto, Dave. One of our greatest joy when we work at the palace was around 4:30. Bhaktipat would drive to the palace with the cheesecake from Madhuban, which was just amazing. This like cheesecake is what we lived for. You know, that was like our pleasure, you know, our highest pleasure in the day, to get this little piece of cheesecake from Madhuban, right, from Bhaktipat, okay? And when the cheesecake would come, right, everybody would say, Ma, is there, Ma, cheesecake is here, and we would stop working, and we all sit around together, the guys, to split apart the cheesecake. Now, one day, David Otto was sitting with us. It was on the back stairs of the palace. And sometimes David Otto would have boils, okay, on his knee. So the cheesecake platter is right there. David Otto sits right in front of it. He bends his knee, and then the boil pops, and all the pus goes over the cheesecake. Right? Everybody's looking, what did you do? You know? Well, we cleaned up the pus and we ate our cheesecake. Oh, it was just the best thing in the world. I got to tell you a different story about David Otto. You know, it's probably one of the best days in my life. So the palace in the beginning, there are block walls and concrete retainment walls. Whenever the block walls or concrete walls, we put up marble, or outside it's concrete cast pieces. And for us, the first time we would put up a new piece, we were so excited to see what it looked like, okay? And for the very big piece, me and David Otto were working together because the super big piece, we were transporting them with the skid loader. So I want to tell you about the wall of the palace on the garden side, the long wall that you see, all right? So it was the first wall where we first put up those pieces, which is, it's actually three pieces of concrete. You have the big piece in the middle that's like half of an arch, right, half of a circle. Then you got 2 arch pieces that covers it, right, and makes the whole square, okay? So by the end of the day, right, because those pieces, they had to be transported first and everything like that, we put up the first middle piece and then the 2 arch piece, right? At the end of the day, they were the first one were going up on the palace, right? These were the biggest piece we ever installed. And me and David Otto, right, we just stand in front of the first section that was done, and we just think, wow, this looks so great. We're just in awe about how beautiful it looks, right? And then we both got our arms crossed like this, and I go, Dave, how much gas in the skid loader? And Dave says, "Tank gas is full, Jad." I go, "Dave, do you want to do this?" He says, "Let's do it." So what we did, we worked all night, okay? But we were so excited. We kept putting pieces after pieces all night long, right? We didn't stop working, didn't get anything to eat since the 4 o'clock offering, right? We're just so happy to put the stuff up and look at it because it was just getting to be more and more beautiful. Now, we worked at night and we didn't prepare this. It was just spontaneous. And so the only lights we had was the lights on the skid loader, right? Little bulldozer thing, right, with forklift. So every time David Dada would go and get another piece, I would be like fastening the piece that we just put up, but I had to do it in the dark with no lights, just feeling with my hands, drilling holes, putting the log bolts in, right? And everything worked out. By the end of at sunrise, the whole wall was done. Then Bhaktapad, came to see because he heard the noise in the garden, right? And when he came in the garden, he saw a wall where there was no wall before the day before, And me and Dave, we were just so happy we got it done, We were just so happy. Kumar was talking before, how he was grateful that when you worked here, you really had to figure out how to do things. And we were on our own to figure it out, It's like there was nobody there to teach us. Some people like Soma came with already some experience, right? Drop out. The only experience I had was with hitchhiking, nothing else, right? And I started more working with marble as soon as I came, and the first day I worked, I really proved I had no experience with this, So, but the whole time I was working, I kept thinking all the time about finding a way to make it go faster, to make it go better, to make it go stronger. I would just think and think and think about this every day. So when I would start with one piece, I would do it a certain way, but by the time I went all around the palace with the same piece, at the end, it was going up twice as fast, because I had found ways to do it better. And I got such a satisfaction of doing this kind of work. I had the happiest days of my life working on the palace, just trying to think of the way to do it better, and just to look at the end and see how beautiful it had become. And I'm very grateful for the time I was here. Thank you.
Tejamaya, you want to say something? 2 minutes? 2 minutes? You did something on the palace, right? You were doing, huh? Are you going to bed? Brahma? Tomorrow? I don't trust you to come. I'm afraid you're not going to come. Something. What did you do in the palace? Come on, I saw you.
Hello, all you beautiful people. Aren't we so blessed to hear these stories and to tell about it? I mean, we're here to listen and share. So wonderful. Okay, so besides working on the palace, working in the kitchen, the restaurant, let's see, put all the garden pieces up around the rose garden, help put the wall together on the outside. Weekends, I went out on Sankirtan. Good story in the palace. Working at the palace one day, Vana showed up. He was distraught, yelling and screaming. Bhaktapad was standing there. His cinder car was there. And we were putting in the garden pieces. I don't know what cinder car was doing, but Vana was freaking out about something. And Bhaktapad said, "Act like a gentleman. Stop this nonsense." He turned around and he picked up the skill saw and he goes, "I'm going to cut my arm off." And Sindikar unplugged it. Bhakti-Pad picked up his cane and was going to hit him over the head with it. And he goes, just stop it. What are you doing? And this was all at the palace, but just that was one of the incidents that I remember so well. Just so many wonderful memories. I mean, and to be here, thank you. I'm just blessed. Thank you so much.
Gargarish, you know something about Rishi Kumar? Okay, and that'll be our last one for tonight, and then dinner's at the community hall. And I have a question. Do people want to watch a movie tonight? The one that Yadabar did, The Man, the Mantra, and the Movement? Has anybody not seen that? Everybody, have you seen it? The Man, the Mantra, and the Movement? I don't know. Come up and tell the story about Katila. Has everybody seen the movie? Pretty much? All right, come up. No, we got 5 minutes. Tell the story.
It's one of those kind of bizarre ones. Maybe they're all bizarre. Prabhupada had a spittoon. You know, a little spittoon. And he would use it. You know, he got a little. So it kind of filled up after a few days that he was here. And, you know, it's Prabhupada's remnants, right? Mother Katila went there, took the whole thing, and oh.
All right. I don't know. All right, we don't have to drag this to the end. Does anybody else want to share one more? Soma's going to share one more thing, and then we're going to go to dinner. And I don't know if I should run the movie or not. Did some people not see it? Movie? Okay, well, we'll put the movie on. After dinner, 7:30.
I just wanted to share something about Tejo Maya, who was worked with me for a long time. He would be the guy that would mix our cement so that we could lay the blocks. And later, when we bought a cement mixing machine, he was in charge of. It was a gas-powered one, and it was really temperamental. And he would talk to it, you know, like it was a person or something. And he would get it going. He was the only one that could get it going. He was the man to take care of this cement mixer. Yeah, all these things. And anyways, because we weren't always working at the palace, we had to work at Bahulaban, building things. We were building the new barn, doing the floor for the cows. So this one person, what was Amabu's name before he was a sannyasi? It was Dan or something. Jeff, Bhakta Jeff, just a new guy, you know, first time coming here. And Kirtanana tells him, you know, go with Tejo and learn how to use the cement mixer. So basically, we had piles of gravel, piles of sand, and bags of cement, and we had, you know, a shovel to load it. But we used the shovel so much, you know, that instead of having a point, you know, it went the other way, and it was like really dull shovel. And anyways, Tejo was showing Mabu how to use the machine, and he got the machine going. He said, okay, you take these, you know, 2 wheelbarrows of gravel, you know, and went up a little ramp or dumped it into the hopper, then one wheelbarrow full of sand. And then you throw 2 cement bags on it, and you open it with the shovel. And he went, you know, but the shovel was so dull, you know, he couldn't break it open with the paper. So Tejo got down with his mouth, and he ripped open the cement bags, you know, and emptied them in. And this new Bhakta Jeff was saying, what are these guys, you know? But he was so, you know, enthusiastic and dedicated that, you know, he mixed all the cement, you know, for the inside of the barn down there. It was, you know, Tejo, he's amazing. Haribol.
Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your sharing. Thank you for bringing the Brijabasi spirit back and really making it alive and real for us who were there and also for those who weren't there. Thank you so much. And tomorrow, movie tonight at 7:30 here, and then tomorrow at 10:30 here. Thank you. Haribo. Haribo.